It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by CinemaSins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from CinemaSins, joined as always by the voice of CinemaSins, Jeremy Scott.
Hello.
And from Music Video Sins, Barrett Scher.
Bonjour, comment allez-vous?
Ooh,
I like that. That's some really good French, man. That was to our French viewers, basically.
Merci bien.
When I was in middle school, my friend took French and I took Spanish, and he taught me moi aussi, al cinéma, which means me too, comma, the theater.
Nice.
I had all my friends in other foreign language classes teach me gibberish sentences in their language. It was fun.
Well, and I took 4 years of French, and then when I went to Paris, I was instantly humbled. So,
I didn't know you went to Paris.
Yeah.
Oh, you did in high school.
Yeah, I was like, it was 20 years ago.
All right. Yeah.
Anyway, today we're going to be talking about the year 2004.
You sly dog! You got me monologuing!
I am not drinking any fucking Merlot!
Change your heart.
Expecto Patronum!
What if I can't find her?
It's easy. She's standing right next to you.
Stop trying to make fetch happen.
That's called a montage!
The hippies finally got something right. Just kidding, but not really.
Afternoon delight.
Which has a lot of pretty great movies in it.
Yeah.
I'm actually very interested to see what we'll be coming up with on this one.
Yeah, it's great in that there's a lot of quality, but making my choice was hard.
Yeah.
But by the way, one thing that I want to point out, we have been in the past coming up with, if the movie says on the IMDb it came out this year, we'll just go ahead and do it and whatever. I'm going to make an exception for Crash this time.
Okay.
Crash won Best Picture in 2005.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about Crash today. So,
good.
So no Crash in 2004.
I was not looking forward to talking about Crash in the first place.
Has a movie ever been so loved and hated so quickly?
Yeah.
It got good reviews. I liked it okay. It won Best Picture, and then that soured everybody on it because it's not Best Picture worthy.
Right.
And so now it's a piece of shit.
Yeah, I liked Crash quite a bit. But anyway, we'll get to that next week.
Yeah.
But what do we want to talk about here? I think we can sort of start with like a hodgepodge here. A lot of these big sequels came out. Shrek 2, Spider-Man 2. We'll talk about those two right off the bat here. Shrek 2 was the #1 movie of 2004, and it led to I've never been a big DreamWorks animation person. And Shrek 2 was just more of the same for me as far as that's concerned. They came out with an even worse one called Shark Tale later on in the year, which we don't even need to talk about that. But it just shows how much Shrek sort of invaded our consciousness back then.
Yeah, it was I think what it was that irreverence, right? Like, I looked down on Shrek for all the fart jokes and body humor jokes and whatnot, but that was a clear distinction that was different than what Pixar was giving us. And then, you roll in that Shrek was really the first one to kind of play with all these fairy tales in the same universe and just kind of dance around the stories that you used to know about them. And I think that was something that stuck with people.
Yeah.
Obviously, we got 4 of these things with a 5th on the way.
Is it just me, or is the big difference between like the bedrock of Toy Story, the franchise, and Pixar versus the bedrock of DreamWorks and Shrek, is that the big difference is like heart?
Yeah.
In the movies.
Very much so.
Because Toy Story movies are hilarious.
Yeah.
But they resonate like emotionally, where the Shrek movies are entertaining to a lot of people, but they don't have that like emotional connectivity.
Yeah, they're in and out, man. It's just you got some funny stuff in there, and then and they tried a little heart in these movies, but that's not the point of those.
Yeah.
It's nothing that Pixar does, and we're talking about details and stuff like that. I believe it was last week.
Yeah.
They don't really they don't put their worlds in motion or anything.
Right.
It's all what's on the screen and nothing sort of creeping on the edges or anything like that. It's just everything is their script and let's go for it.
Yeah.
Well, we are going to talk about Spider-Man 2 in just a second because now I want to talk about Incredibles, having just talked about Pixar and the way they build their world. And Incredibles came out this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's my favorite Pixar film, and I have argued it could be the best superhero movie ever made.
Yeah.
And I think that's still a valid argument. I still think Spider-Man 2 is in the top 5 of that discussion.
I do too.
But Incredibles is another place, just like Finding Nemo you were saying last week. And it's not just the side characters, but man, the world building here is so, it's like divine. It's like a living painting. Every little bit that you see, like the guy who sues, and you see the old timey, Mr. Sansweet didn't want to be saved. He didn't ask to be saved. Like, and then, I mean, they just, you're right. The way you phrased it just now is perfect. DreamWorks is just, they want you to see what's right in front of you. And they don't really put the rest of that world in motion. And The Incredibles is maybe even a better example of that than Finding Nemo. Because everywhere you look, there's personality just bursting forth. I mean, one of the most famous scenes from that movie is this throwaway scene of Samuel L. Jackson bickering with his wife about where his supersuit is.
Yeah.
Because he can't find it. I love this movie so much. I don't know what else I can say that I haven't said in the past or on that Sins video, but Incredibles is incredible.
Yeah, it was one of the first ones that I remember being absolutely gorgeous too. The Pixar before had been good. It always was a little off-putting, like too shiny, maybe a little bit. This one, with all the little reds and yellows and everything that they throw into the Incredibles, you start seeing a new kind of like philosophy going on. And this is a mid-period here that's the best of Pixar.
Yeah.
It starts off a huge, like, I thought at some point we were going to see a Pixar movie that might have even been PG-13 or R-rated or something like that, because they were making stories that had a lot of adult themes in it and all that. Incredibles doesn't quite touch that, but like, you know, all the stuff that's launched off of this,
Wall-E and Up,
all that, it starts becoming a little bit more adult oriented, even though it was still for kids and everything like that. I thought they might have like a whole other wing called, you know, Pixar Edge or something like that.
Pixar Adults.
yeah, exactly.
That animation still holds up though. It's like some of the best that. None of it's dated.
No.
It looks gorgeous.
You go back
today.
and watch that first Toy Story, and that looks a little dated. Right? But Incredibles doesn't do that for me.
Yeah.
And this is, a lot of this might be Brad Bird, but this movie is great at giving you laughs without doing it on dialogue, right? Like that whole scene where Elastigirl is breaking into the volcano and gets a leg stuck in one door and gets a torso stuck in another door. I love that shit. Again, that's probably Brad Bird. You see that kind of stuff in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol and so on. But and also we should note that it was just announced yesterday that Incredibles 2 has been moved forward.
Yeah.
It's going to come out in 2018 now.
Whereas Toy Story 4 was moved back.
Yes, which hopefully might mean permanently. I don't know. I don't know that I need a Toy
I don't
Story
know.
4.
I don't know if you know, you go to Disney and you say something like permanently involving Toy Story 4. They're like,
somebody's going to security.
Somebody, don't. There's somebody about to jump out the window here. Don't let
What a great year for superhero movies, though, because we get The Incredibles and we get Spider-Man 2, which still holds up really well.
Yeah.
I just saw it like a week ago. It's the best of the Spider-Man movies, in my opinion. Still top 5
Easily.
until that Dark Knight comes along. This was, at the time I saw it, I was like, wow, this is the apex. We finally made it.
What makes this? Is it Alfred Molina's more three-dimensional villain? What makes this so much better than, is it because we're already we're accustomed to this universe that Sam Raimi created, which we were talking about was so unique at the time? Tobey Maguire is great and everything. We don't have to go through the whole Uncle Ben baggage and all that stuff. Is that kind of where we can really focus on like the central conflict?
It's the same thing as Dark Knight. Batman Begins laid the world and it was really solid. But now that we've done that, we can go to new heights because we don't have to waste time in the second film establishing any of this universe. I do think Alfred Molina's performance is a big part of why that movie is good. And the Spider-Man movies always did that, though. The villain was always sympathetic, somebody that you could, at least at the end of the first one. Yeah. But in the third one, Sandman is basically half evil, half good the whole time. But the action set pieces, that subway chase where he and Doc Ock go at it, there's a lot of meat here for superhero fans, I think.
Yeah, for me, it's Sam Raimi sort of unleashed on a big studio picture. The scene where they're operating on Doc Ock and he gets to do his Evil Dead type stuff, and it's something you never see in a big studio. That's where I was officially on board with the movie, was that, because he was able to do so many things. You know, the close up of the chainsaw and the little trailing shot of one of the octopus tentacles and everything. All those type of things make a movie really fun to watch, and he does a lot of that, like that quick zoom things, and especially during that the scene where he shows up out of nowhere while they're in the cafe and everything. They do a lot of that. And it's like the close-ups are really clean. I think this is where just Sam Raimi was allowed to do his thing, and I think that's the reason why it's so good.
Yeah, and this also is one of my favorite moments, and I don't even know how to call what kind of moment to call this, but early in the film when Peter's slacking because he's Spider-Man, right? And his professor's bitching him out, and he lost his pizza job, and he does get this interview with Dr. Octavius to do his paper that's like 4 months late, by the way. And he meets Octavius, and the first thing he says is, he tells me you're brilliant but lazy. And it kind of unsettles Peter, of course. And then at the very end, when Spider-Man takes off his mask at the climax, he repeats it, and Doc Ock goes, brilliant but lazy. And it has this realization to it where now he gets it. It's such a great delivery in that line. I love it so much.
Yeah. So another huge movie that came out this year, and of course is a cultural lightning rod, is Passion of the Christ, which I believe is the number one R-rated movie domestically of all time. Okay. Like Deadpool's passed it internationally and everything, but yeah, this was a sort of a master stroke of marketing.
Oh, geez.
Because it sort of, first off, it takes the story of the Bible, basically, of the New Testament, if you really just, you don't think the New Testament's anything, but it takes the story and it basically says, here is the suffering as Jesus Christ actually suffered and everything. And by the way, you're not a real Christian if you don't go watch this movie. It's pretty much what the marketing.
Yeah. Well, that's both funny and true, but they actually did do a never-before-done genius thing where Mel Gibson was taking this movie directly to churches. Mm-hmm. He was traveling around the country, showing it to groups of pastors who would be moved by it, go back, and then their entire congregations were buying tickets. Like, their churches were renting theaters out to go watch this together like a church service.
Yeah, that was the main thing, was that the whole, after he did all of that, you had all these people, like, okay, so now you got theaters rented out and everything. And just the very idea that it's selling out is enough word of mouth for a lot of movies to just keep going after that. A lot of religious movies have tried this model of, do you want to rent out a theater and all this other type of stuff, but they haven't quite done it. They either don't have the story that this is,
right,
or they don't have they didn't treat it with the same kind of weight that Mel Gibson did with this one.
A lot of weight there.
There is a lot of weight. I don't know if this movie is good or not. I've watched it one time. I don't think that I liked it particularly much.
Well, that's a thing.
What else can you say about that movie?
Yeah. It's so hard to watch, right?
It is. That's the point.
Like if you make this movie not about Christ and it's
yeah,
and it's Uma Thurman. Do we look at it like, oh, that's a great movie?
And it's about Barabbas or something.
A lot of torture going on there.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is that the film is inextricably tied to faith, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you can't, if you come from the outside and try and watch it as a film, like a film reviewer, you can't really do that. At least if you're not having some understanding of the story or some Christianity in your blood or something, right? And I've actually had a lot of discussions with people about this, that, I mean, this was a religious experience to a lot of people. It was heavy for a lot of people because it was the first time they'd ever seen visuals that were visceral around the crucifixion, right? Most you ever see in a church or in a Bible or anywhere where religious paintings are, you might see Jesus on a cross. You're not seeing his back literally torn to shreds from a whip.
Yeah.
Right? And so for a lot of people who went into this movie as people of faith, it was more than just a movie.
Yeah, it was.
It's really hard to like you said, I don't know if I liked it or not.
Yeah.
Because I viewed it as half movie, half church service. And it didn't really work for me on either level.
Yeah, Mel Gibson has always had that. Now Gibson is, I think, we're forgetting. We're gonna obviously, just like Woody Allen and all these other people that have had, checkered pasts, to say the least, or whatever. When we look at him as a director, I think he's generally underrated, although this Hacksaw Ridge movie is probably going to push him to, these new heights. Who knows? I mean,
back to Braveheart levels, probably.
Yeah, like I wonder if this is really the return of Mel Gibson, or they're like, well, we'll let you do one every once in a while, but we're still not ready to put you back in Lethal Weapon 6 or something like that.
I've been on the bandwagon for a while that it's time to forgive Mel and let him have another shot, because he's got so much talent, and we've forgiven so many other assholes in Hollywood who didn't say something racist, but killed someone or raped someone, and we're going to keep nominating them for awards.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? Like, if you're going to keep giving those people chances after chance, whatever, then somebody who says something and he said some horrible fucking shit.
I'm not defending what he said.
He said some really horrible shit. I don't want to get, twisted here, but yeah, you're right. Like, I mean, even Downey, who was as much into drugs as any actor that we can possibly come up with on this. Like, the guy just kept on, through the 90s, was always in trouble for that. It seemed like,
and they kept propping him up.
Yeah.
They got him out of prison to shoot that Fugitive sequel. He was serving time, and Hollywood, the studio went and got a judge to grant permission for him to leave prison and come shoot this movie.
And Downey always remembered, Mel Gibson gave him a break with Air America and all this other stuff, and I think he's even said, I'd do Iron Man 4 if you got Mel Gibson to direct.
He did say that,
because he's like, look, you gotta give somebody a chance every once in a while. The problem is, I think drugs are always their problem, and then if you say something, it's always, well, that's always a part of you.
That's a personality characteristic. Is how it gets.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I'm not defending him. I'm not judging people who are angry at what he said. But Hollywood's thing is, after we punish you for a while, we'll give you another chance and pretend like that never happened. And Mel's the first guy to come along that hasn't gotten that chance. It seemed like it went on way too long between Apocalypto and this.
Yeah, he didn't help himself, because he kept saying bad stuff after he got in trouble. So I mean, it's one of those things. I don't necessarily blame him but you're right. I mean, these people keep getting chances, so that's the ultimate point. But
anyway, Passion of the Christ.
Yeah,
is that the best movie Satan ever?
I don't remember the Satan. Was it the snake?
He was in the garden.
No, I don't remember.
Man, probably not, because I can't remember it.
The thing I remember most about The Passion of the Christ is that Jim Caviezel was struck by lightning twice while making that.
Yes.
And that almost makes me believe there's a God. Because math doesn't explain that.
Of course, the cynicism in me tells me that's a story they made up for, But the thing I was trying to get to, though, is that Mel Gibson likes to make these, he's really into torture a lot.
Yeah.
Like his Braveheart, is just a lot of torture. Passion of the Christ is, of course, in Lethal Weapon, he's always hanging from something, getting shocked. There's something that
intentionally throwing his shoulder out of location.
Yeah, it's something that South Park, made light of in the episode called "The Passion of the Jew."
Yeah,
that he was, he's just crazy, and that he likes to get tortured, and he likes torture. But that's basically what that movie is.
Yeah, it really is.
But anyway.
It's torture.
All right. What else, guys?
How about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
Ooh, such a good movie.
Good movie. So this is the last movie before this guy lost me.
Charlie Kaufman?
Charlie Kaufman.
Yeah.
Because everything he's done since then has looked intriguing and off-putting all at once to me.
This is so relatable. It's a love story that's so skewed. And visually, it's Michael Gondry who did a bunch of music videos.
Yeah, Michel Gondry, yeah.
Michel Gondry.
Yeah.
And man, it's so gorgeous to watch. And the narrative, as skewed as it is, makes perfect sense. And Jim Carrey, man, like you can't do more of a 180 from Bruce Almighty to this than he did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. It's a great performance.
It is. He threw himself into that role.
And once again, didn't get nominated.
Yeah. And it's a heartbreaking movie at times.
Oh, yeah, man.
It's like, because this relationship was not really very healthy.
No,
right?
no. That's what's so great about it.
We're mourning the loss of this relationship that was really pretty foul.
Yeah.
As it's slowly being erased from his mind.
It's such a great way to do that, because once he gets to a part, because he's like, okay, this can go. And then he gets to that part where it's like the part around where he says he's truly happy. And he's like, no, don't take that one.
Yeah.
Don't take that one. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
And then it starts, unraveling on him. And then when she says, when they're sitting on the thing and they says, this is it. This is the last bit of me. Man, that is pretty devastating.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Just a visually wonderful film to look at. It's not glossy,
No.
but I would call it gorgeous. Especially some of those shots where they're in places where their memories were, and those places start disintegrating, like that beach house.
Yeah.
Visually, I'd never seen anything like that. And if you tried to pitch me this movie, I wouldn't have believed it could be shot. But he found a way. I really love it. I thought long and hard about making this my number one choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie didn't make very much money when it came out, but almost everybody that I know, you run into and talk about this movie, they love it so much.
Yeah.
It's gotten a tremendous life after it came out of theaters.
Great
And
cast too.
Yeah.
right?
Well, it
Mark
is.
Ruffalo and Elijah Wood and Kirsten Dunst and
Tom Wilkinson.
The
The other thing, I talk a lot about accents on this podcast, but Kate Winslet's American accent in this movie is perfect.
yeah, it's
flawless.
really good.
Now, Tom Wilkinson, you can hear some of it coming through every once in a while. But Kate Winslet, man, she fucking nails this.
Can't get on board with that blue hair though.
Well, it's only for part of the movie. She's Tangerine.
But yeah, this is a really great movie. And I think it's made several like best of the decade
Oh, really?
type of lists
I
too.
think it should.
I think it
Probably
should,
deserves
yeah.
that.
But yeah, I really enjoy that one. Another one that came out and is Mean Girls.
Yeah.
I maybe I love this movie more than most people. I don't know.
I love it.
No.
I don't know what. It seems like I ran into a lot of people who are like, it was okay.
Man, I think it redefined high school comedies until Easy A came out and did it again. For a decade there, it was the pinnacle of what you could do with that kind of high school romantic comedy thing.
And you have a connection here because Mark Waters directed Mean Girls and Daniel Waters wrote Heathers.
Oh,
so that's sort of that same DNA in this one. Although Tina Fey
Tina Fey wrote this one.
Tina Fey wrote this movie, and I don't know if she's written anything straight up like this since. Like almost every one of her vehicles after this has been written by another person. And I wish she would write more of her own movies because she's this is fantastic. This is great dialogue. This is something that I didn't, kind of like how Clueless was in 1995. I didn't think I was going to like this at all. And then came in afterwards just like, this is so funny. This is so good.
Tim Meadows, every time he's on screen, makes me cry laughing.
Yeah.
He's hysterical in this movie.
Yeah. Oh, he's fantastic. And, it also introduced us to Lizzie Kaplan too, who's a great actress, and Rachel McAdams was like her first big one.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just such a funny movie all the way throughout, and like I think that's sort of the beginning of the I know right. Because they sort of make fun of that in this, but it became a phrase because of it, really. So a lot of people were like, I know, right? And that's where you started hearing that so many times.
This really shows you the potential that Lindsay Lohan had.
Yeah.
And that she never really she didn't capitalize on this afterwards.
No.
I mean, she had the celebrity, but she didn't capitalize.
She was a
cinema-wise.
better than average actor as a child actor when she did The Parent Trap, which my wife loves and watches regularly. She's pretty good in that.
Mm-hmm.
And then this was her first kind of, even though it's a high school movie, adult role, hit film. She's really good in it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So yeah, that's one of those derailed trains. I don't understand how it happened because it seemed to be everything lining up the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
I was just looking at Tina Fey's writing, and like, this is her main big movie that she wrote. Now, to be honest, she was very, very busy with Saturday Night Live, 30 Rock, and the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, which is another great show. It's on Netflix. But, I wish she would just write another movie. I mean, this was a home run. Maybe she's like, well, I hit a home run. That's it.
Well, she was the head writer at SNL. I think writing is in her blood. I just think she's too busy with other stuff. She's probably like a lot of actresses or actors her stature. She probably has a production company where she's serving as a producer on films. I know American Express has her super busy making all those fucking commercials. But Mean Girls is great.
Yeah. Another movie that came out, and we don't usually go too much in depth about sequels, but I do believe Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is worth talking about here. This is Alfonso Cuarón, which I'm probably mispronouncing in some way, but you have, exactly. You have. This is a guy. I mean, they got like a top shelf guy to do this, and it shows all the way through this movie. The book itself, I don't think is considered one of the better books, but I consider this one of the better movies because of him.
Yeah, it's got a great mood that the first two don't have.
Yeah,
because they're more kid friendly, and the visual aesthetic he brings this slightly more adult story. Kids are maybe starting to fall in love now and all that stuff. I do agree with you. I think Order of the Phoenix, then this one for me.
Yeah. Order of the Phoenix is definitely my favorite one.
And I like Goblet of Fire way more than I should, so I can't wait to talk about that.
Well, and this is where they're starting to get shaggy and where they're starting to have like normal.
You can see them aging.
Yeah, and they're kind of let loose a little bit, and you can tell from the direction that he's letting them do that. You can see it a little bit in the book. And then it introduces Sirius Black, Gary Oldman's character, for the first time. It's done so great. Like where you see that front page of the paper there, and he's in there screaming and everything. The way it ends up is just so great. And he became a great part of that series, as the father figure and as the guiding force and everything. And just the way he's introduced is terrific.
Yeah, because like the whole movie, you don't know he's good.
Yeah,
you're expecting him to be bad.
Yeah, I mean his name is Sirius Black.
That was a really good if you want to go back to the source material, J.K. Rowling did a pretty good cover up there because normally a name like Sirius Black, you're like, okay, come on.
Yeah,
all right, I get you. He's evil, but he also he comes from the family that doesn't like Muggles and all this other type of stuff, and it's like, so it is a big surprise to find out that, although I think during reading it, I was kind of like, oh, he's probably good.
Yeah.
I was saying something was tipped off by it. I don't know what it was.
Well, and as preposterous as the time travel is,
yes,
to only be here in this one story and then never return. That reveal the second time through, when instead of it being his dad that saved him, he realizes it was him. Is I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it right now. And it's a lot of movies have that young hero who has to learn his power or what have you, and this is just one of the best moments of that I've ever seen, where he kind of, because this kicks him forward.
Oh yeah,
I've gone on record as saying Harry Potter may be the most worthless wizard in the entire series of Harry Potter movies, because it's always Hermione saving the day, but this empowers him. Like, I can do that. Holy shit! Because he thought it was his dad, because he never even thought it could be him or somebody his age.
And that Patronus effect, like visually, just this movie is so beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing that they got all these movies to be at least watchable. Every single one of them. I mean, and a lot of them transcend that. They're actually very good movies and everything. So they did 8 of them, and they're all good.
Yeah.
What else, guys?
Sideways.
Yeah.
Sideways. This is a movie I missed in the theater. I did not watch during its awards season like I usually try and do with movies I've missed. And I just found it on HBO 2-3 years later. Never had an interest in this movie. Part of it was the wine thing. Now, today I'm a big wine fan, but 10 years ago I didn't give a shit about wine. I didn't know anything about wine, and this movie didn't look like it was made for me. Holy shit, was I wrong.
Yeah.
Way before I ever got into wine, I became obsessed with this movie. I've probably seen it 25 or 30 times.
Yeah, Alexander Payne coming back, and he's really, I don't know if he's ever made a bad movie. He's made maybe something that you're like, kind of whatever. But this one's really, really good, and Paul Giamatti, once again, not nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah, and every bit as deserving as any role he's ever done.
Absolutely.
He carries this movie.
Like 2 years in a row. He's got American Splendor and he's got this. And then it takes fucking Cinderella Man before he finally gets a nomination. And his only nomination.
I guess is it because Thomas Hayden Church was nominated.
Thomas
right?
Hayden Church and Virginia Madsen were nominated for
so-
this.
Wow,
I
that's
guess
a
it's
crime. They're both good. But
Yeah.
this is Paul Giamatti's movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man.
It is, but Thomas Hayden Church is freaking amazing in this too, especially coming from Lowell from Wings
Yeah,
to show this step when he breaks down. He's like, "Muzz, you can't do it." Man, I mean, because his stature and just the way he is, it's hilarious.
And I love he's trying to get him laid in this movie, and he's like, "You need to get your joint worked off."
Yeah, he says a bunch of crass shit. Again, I'd like to talk about the hilarious car crash in this movie.
Yes.
Because Thomas Hayden Church is about to get married, but he's fooling around this whole wine week trip and gets caught by the girl he's fooling around with. She beats his face in with a motorcycle helmet. And so he decides to explain to my fiance what happened. I'm going to say it was a car accident. They actually discussed that earlier. Paul Giamatti gives him that idea. And then they're driving home, and he's basically begging Giamatti to let him drive while they're filling up with gas. And Giamatti's like, "No, I got it. And he's like, "I'd really like to drive." He's like, "Okay." He goes like a mile down the road, hard lefts into a field, and drives directly into a tree. And Giamatti's like, "What the fuck?" He's so shocked. And then we finally get to, we cut, so we don't actually see the whole conversation, but somehow Thomas Hayden Church has convinced Paul Giamatti to do it again. Because this wreck didn't look like somebody got hurt that bad. So he revs the engine with a cinder block and steps out of the way. The car's like 15 feet away from this tree, but it just curves to the right, misses the tree 100 yards further, hits a fence and goes into a ditch. And every time I see it, I know exactly what's coming. And I just cackle my ass off.
So good. And it's in another one that's kind of relatable too, because he's a did he have a book published?
No.
Okay, so his book he's trying to publish during this. He's not like Michael Douglas in Wonder Boys where he's got
he's never been published. In fact, this is the one he says, "I thought this was the one."
Mm-hmm.
And there's a crushing scene when he's at the wine tasting place and he calls his agent and she tells him, "It's not going to happen. There's no market for this book."
Yeah.
He goes in and ultimately drinks the spit bucket, which is disgusting. But yeah, he had never been published before, but he's about to be, is what he thinks.
Yeah. But this is a fantastic movie. And it's got a lot of that, I love that like double meaning type of dialogue, especially with the Virginia Madsen stuff with him. And they have that really nice.
Pinot.
They're talking about how like, you say, you keep it waiting and waiting and waiting. And then when you finally pop it open, it tastes so fucking good. And you're like, he's like, looks at Virginia Madsen like, okay, it's on. It's fucking on now. Yeah.
Only for that evening, it was not on.
Yeah.
Kisses her in the kitchen, gets turned down,
Exactly.
doesn't sleep with her for another couple of days.
Right.
Now the way he goes from socially inept to when he's talking about wine.
Oh, I love that.
He's
scene.
just his eyes light up.
Yeah.
And he's just totally in, and he speaks like a normal person.
Well, and she's like, "Why? Well, you got to tell me what's up with the Pinot," because he basically is obsessed with Pinot Noir, which is basically what I drink. And he when he talks about how hard it is to grow this grape, and it's not a survivor, like Cabernet or Merlot, where you can just grow that shit anywhere. It has to be in a specific place. It needs just enough coolness and just enough moisture, and the passion comes through. It's basically the only time in the whole movie he lights up is when he's talking about wine.
Yeah. Also in 2004, Shaun of the Dead came out. Man, this introduced us to Edgar Wright. I'm sure that everybody across the pond there knew his. You know why I said it that way? I hate it when people say that.
Man.
And across the pond. But no, they were familiar with his work before then, I think in some TV series and stuff like that. But we know him more as a movie director, and this is a great like opening shot for him.
Oh, geez.
It's not a spoof movie.
No.
This is how you're supposed to do a lovingly parodic representation of a genre.
Yeah.
It's turning it on its head. It's shooting it in ways that are different. It's referencing the source material and stuff like that. and doing it with love and with just fun. Like the
Yeah.
whole movie is fun, even though it's about zombies.
Yeah, well, it's the same exact thing Edgar Wright does with Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's paying homage to and roasting this genre of cop movies. That's my preference of all of his films is Hot Fuzz, but Shaun of the Dead is a pretty close second for me.
Yeah, I'm the same way about Hot Fuzz, but like, I mean, yeah, this is you don't see comedies made this way, where it's a lot of like fun editing and fun camera moves and all these little things that he comes together on. Especially when he's doing that whole like, we're gonna do this and this and this and this, and then we're gonna have a drink at the Winchester or whatever at the end and everything. And everything ends with him like it's a happy ending, drinking a beer. Yeah,
you're going to the pub.
Yeah, and I love also the fact that that whole thing that he says, like all the bar names, I believe, are things that they actually interact with later on. Like we will have a Bloody Mary or whatever like that. And like they end up, there's a person named Mary that is bloody,
wow.
And there's like all these different things that, and there's people out there who know this probably by heart, but all that stuff that he goes through is, some of the things that he says are things that they actually run into the movie.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And of course, it's got that great scene where they're throwing records at zombies.
Yeah.
They're like, don't throw the Prince out.
Yeah.
He's like, which one is it? Oh, it's Batman soundtrack. He's like, okay, that's fine.
And they are totally missing. They can't hit anything with those records. They're everything's like spiraling off and everything, and you realize how useless they are anyway, even if they hit them. But yeah, this is such a funny movie. But yeah, Hot Fuzz. I can't wait till we talk about that because I think that's his best one.
Mm-hmm.
Another big comedy that came out. Actually, two big comedies came out. Anchorman.
Yeah.
Which I did not like when I first watched.
Yeah.
And I think it always comes down to when you're by yourself in a theater watching a movie like this. You're just like not, a lot of times
you didn't like it when you were by yourself, but then when you were with other people, you liked it?
Yeah. Well, I think more it was about people starting to quote this movie all around me. And I'm just sitting there going, wait a minute, was there really that many funny things in this movie? And then I went back and watched it and I was like, oh, okay, I can kind of see what they're going for here.
Man.
Like it took me forever. When you watch movies at midnight,
yeah, no, that's true.
by yourself, and you want to just go home. Nothing is great. It feels like you have to really like be there for it. But Anchorman is a movie we still quote today.
It's so quotable. I
Yeah.
mean, and even the I mean, you've got Paul Rudd's character that is just this Lothario, which is terrific. You got Champ Kind, which has, his big whammy, And then Steve Carell, who's dumb as a box of rocks.
Yeah.
He's got these great lines of like, they're arguing in the office and everything. And he's like, loud noises.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're yelling about.
Yeah.
Oh, man. They talk about Adam Kay and Will Ferrell always talk about this layering effect that they put on movies that I can totally – I'm a sucker for those movies because each time you watch them, something else will hit you. There's like a little throwaway line when Christina Applegate comes out and she's like, and you're not going to let me read the news because I have breasts?
Yeah.
Exquisite breasts?
Yeah.
And like she overpronounces it.
Yeah.
It just sounds awesome.
It's a hint of the absurd, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like when he goes early on to that restaurant and then just busts out jazz flute.
Yeah.
And he's like dancing all over the place.
And he keeps entering the frame and
could
he's
have been-
impossible.
It could have been anything.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a little bit of absurdity there, I think, to make that work. Otherwise, it wouldn't play very well.
I will say, even though I wasn't like super liking it the first time I watched it, the part where he jumps down into the bear pit and he's like, I immediately regret this decision made me laugh very hard.
Oh, yes.
It was something that I would start saying myself, even though I wasn't like a big fan of the movie. But now I love it. But do you guys know that there's an Anchorman Untold story?
Yeah, they shot so much footage, they made a second movie out of it.
Yeah, and it has.
Have you seen it?
And it's on the DVD or Blu-ray, and like it's got Kevin Corrigan is in it, and Maya Rudolph, and they're like these robbers, and they're going around, and it's like a whole story with them. you know, and everything. And I didn't really pay much attention to it because I was kind of in the background. I was like, every once in a while watching it, but it's more about that than it is about, you know, him and Christina Applegate having the power struggle at the news station and all that. In fact, it even starts with her already as an anchor or something.
I never saw it. I just read about it.
Yeah, it's not very good. It's not funny at all.
Well, you know, you wouldn't think, hey, we have a bunch of extra footage, let's make another movie out of that, would turn into a great movie.
I just sat there and thought to myself, like, how'd they make this and that? Like, how did that fit in? How did that fit in to all this other stuff that was going on? It doesn't make any sense. You know, like, I feel like they started off making that movie and realized it wasn't funny and they rewrote it.
Well, that worked out.
Yeah, exactly. So another one that came out, another big comedy, was Dodgeball, a true underdog story. That one's another one that people like to quote quite often and everything. It
overlapping universes there with Vince Vaughn and Ben Stiller and all that stuff.
Yeah, it plays kind of like a Todd Phillips type of movie, you know, but he's not in any way involved with this or whatever. But it's you know, they called them the frat pack back when they were like, you know, bigger comedy stars and everything. Yeah, Vince Vaughn and Will Ferrell and Luke Wilson and all these guys, but yeah, Dodgeball is just another one of those, especially the Jason Bateman stuff.
Yeah.
You know, Jason Bateman, you know, just it was, you know, this bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it works for him. You know, that's something that you hear quite often. But yeah, I mean, it's just a funny movie.
I love Ben Stiller in this movie.
Yeah,
especially at the end when the girl makes it over from the cheerleading tournament and says, "I love you" to the kid, and he throws a ball and hits him in the face. He's like, "Jody loves Chachi."
Yeah. He is hilarious, and he's such an evil prick in this.
I love it when he's introducing his group, like his posse and everything, and he's like, "Here's Blaze, Laser, Blazer." Yeah, they're all American gladiators.
Yeah, and just him hitting on Christina Taylor, who is his wife in real life, and getting rejected many times is hilarious to me on a sort of a different metal level, you know. But yeah, real funny movie.
If you like Vince Vaughn, this is like not peak Vince Vaughn. I think Wedding Crashers is peak Vince Vaughn, but like just fast talking, like, you know, wisecracking type of stuff, and he's awesome in it.
He's very Vince Vaughn-y in it.
He is.
What else, guys?
Let's talk about Collateral.
Okay.
Ooh, good movie.
This is Michael Mann.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise. Jamie Foxx.
Yep.
I love it.
Love Collateral.
I think this movie is awesome.
Yeah.
Basically, the story is a hitman grabs a taxi driver, basically orders him around so he can do all these kills.
Yeah.
The driver for the night, basically.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise almost never plays somebody this bad, right? Like,
yeah, I don't think I think this is the first time we've ever seen him as a villain.
I wish he would. He's so good at it.
Yeah, and it might be the only time we've seen him.
Unless you count Frank Mackey or whatever.
Yeah, although
he's a social villain.
I wouldn't really call him. I mean that's as close as we saw him to being like a truly evil
he's flat
person.
out not good.
Yeah.
But you do sort of root for him, but that's just the nature of the way storytelling works.
Right.
But I'm glad to hear you guys like it. I think that this is more divided than I had thought, because I saw it and liked it, but I know a few people who do not like it, and I don't get it.
I don't know.
Oh,
I mean,
it's awesome.
This is just sort of my jam type of movie, you know, like a movie that's sort of all contained into one night, and it's got all this action that happens in over several hours and everything. I've always loved movies like that for whatever reason, and this does it really well. Michael Mann's amazing.
Yeah.
But Jamie Foxx got nominated for this, as well as Ray.
Oh, yeah.
He got 2 nominations in this year.
Wow.
But he got nominated for Collateral.
I sure hope we don't have to talk about Ray.
Yeah. You guys don't like Ray?
Well, here's the thing about Ray. That sounds like a movie, doesn't it? There's something about Ray.
It's a shame about Ray. It's a Lemonhead song.
Yeah.
It's a shame about Ray.
It's a shame.
All these biopics always have shortcomings for me, because they're always like
sucky.
they're sucky.
Sorry, go on.
But they always have to. They feel like they have to hit all of these beats, basically.
Yeah.
They don't, and because they're trying to structure their movie this way, they don't have really much room for real creativity other than saying stuff that didn't actually happen, which happens in biopics all the time.
Yeah.
And Jamie Foxx is amazing at imitating Ray Charles.
Yeah.
And that's what he got his nomination for and won.
Which you'd think would be easy. And because, I mean, Ray Charles was such an oversized character, and because of his blindness, so singular. Yeah, Ray, like there's two music biopics I think get most of it right. It's Walk the Line and Ray. And I think Ray, man, just because he seemed like he embodied it, not only like the ostentatious, like, here, I'm Ray Charles, I'm, the singer and everything, but like his whole struggles with addiction and all that stuff, his family drama and everything. I like this movie more than I thought I would. It doesn't really stay with me and everything, but his performance definitely does. And unfortunately, his performance would carry on until where he did a Ray Charles impersonation on Kanye West's Gold Digger track, too, which at that point was getting very tiresome. But,
I look at biopics like the same as when my teacher in school would make me read a biography instead of something that was fiction. I'm not drawn to them at all. I think Joaquin Phoenix was great in Walk the Line. I watched it. It added nothing to my life. I probably could have used those 2 hours to do something else. That's how I feel about Ray. It's harmless. It didn't offend me. It's not bad filmmaking. I'm just not drawn to watch a biography of a singer.
I'm the same way about these biopics. And when Walk Hard comes out later on and basically uses those two movies that you just mentioned as the template for this and everything, I'm like, this is exactly why I don't like biopics. This is all the stuff that they're making fun of right here. But I can see liking it too. It's just that I've never been a big fan of them. What else, guys?
Miracle.
Yeah.
Fuck you if you don't like this movie.
Yeah.
There aren't enough good hockey movies. This is probably not going to shatter anyone's world when you watch it. You know the outcome before you watch it, but it's Kurt Russell just anchoring this movie as this like really hard to penetrate and get to know gruff coach who has a plan that nobody but him really understands that ends up working to help this scrappy group of basically no talent Americans beat the most talented hockey team in the world.
I got a question for you. So this is essentially a biopic though, right? But it's more of like a behind the scenes type of thing that shows you, story that you wouldn't.
It's not sold to you as a biopic. It's not sold to you as the story of
But it's
the
not
coach.
it's not about one person.
I guess it's not the lifespan of the person.
This
it's
is
the
more
lifespan
about
of the story.
an event, an action event, basically. I think a biopic, you are not wrong, by the way. It is very biopic-ish because it's coming on with, has to come up with some facts here and there, even though it's stretching the truth here and there. But it's not, it's a singular event and how we got to this event. Whereas in a person's life, it's all the boring shit that they went through. And then here's all the highlights. They usually took a lot of drugs and then, I
didn't have to watch Coach Herb court his wife 20 years before the events of this movie. Right? I do love that. It's got one of the best sports speeches or speeches in general in all of film history in between periods in that game where he gives them that, this is yours, this is your moment. Now go out there and take it. And he just walks out. Yeah. And I get fired up every time I see it. It's just,
Yeah. And it's, it's a, really significant sports moment in U.S. history and everything. One thing about this movie that bothered me, this is very small. I'm not saying the movie's bad because of it, but I hated the fact that they got Al Michaels to redo his
that was dumb.
Just play his normal thing, because every time somebody tries to imitate it, it's not the same thing.
I have a theory on that though, because I've tried to pull this clip so many times.
It's too muddy.
The quality is awful.
Well, yeah, it was
it's buried.
This is pre-cable era.
Yeah. So I don't think they could get a clear. I'm sure they could do like a zoom and enhance type of thing.
And it would probably sound a little bit crackly and everything. Yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying.
They still could have used it though. I mean, they could have.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like his new announcing adds any element to the game, to the movie you're watching. it feels like they could have found a way to, like, even if it was a tinny type of sound or whatever, they still could have done that. But anyway, it always loses something for me whenever they do that type of thing, and it's just like, it's not the same, and well, you know, it's not whatever. But Miracle, good movie.
Yeah, it is. Thank you for saying that.
Let's see, what else, Gus?
You talked about Shaun of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead came out this year.
And this is Zack Snyder.
Yes, a competent film from Zack Snyder.
Yeah, directing a script by James Gunn, who did Guardians of the Galaxy. I remember watching this, and I was like, "Man, I love this.
It's awesome."
Yeah, and then the Zack Snyder we got after that, like,
I don't know what happened, man.
I'm fine with 300, but then after that, everything is like something else is going on there.
I mean, it's not like Dawn of the Dead. I mean, of course, it's a remake for the George Romero movie, which is awesome in its own right. But there's something about the characters, even like the broad strokes of like Ty Burrell's asshole character and like all that stuff.
Yeah.
And Ving Rhames, you know.
Which is funny if you've watched Modern Family and then you go back and watch this, you're like, whoa, what happened?
But he builds tension from the guy on the roof, you know, across the way and everything. And the zombies are always in the back of your mind, even though they're not like prominently featured throughout the whole movie. They're in a shopping mall, and for whatever reason, I love that stuff. I just think it's really well done. It's not the greatest horror movie, but it's a really good movie.
It is super well done. And you're talking, all that stuff on the roof is where it's like really shines and everything. And it also has a really nice like end credit sequence too. But I think my favorite part of Dawn of the Dead though, it's got to be that Richard Cheese and Lounge Against the Machine who does the cover of Disturbed's "Down with the Sickness."
Oh yeah,
and they're like, they're sitting there picking off zombies from the roof. And it's like, better get up, you're coming down with the sickness. You're going your mother get up, you're coming down with the sickness. And it's just so enjoyable, you know. In that just it brings you into that world so well and everything, and you realize you're not watching just. You know, they could have easily done the real Disturbed song there, but they did the funny version, and you're like, oh, okay, this is the fun version. We're good. But yeah, I love Dawn. Yeah, it's such a good movie. Another horror movie that came out, which led to the term torture porn. Saw came out, and this was an extremely popular genre. For about 5 years. It went way past its, shelf life, obviously, because after a while, do we really need to see this over and over and over again? No, we don't. No. I'm sure that they'll find a way to resurrect Saw someday because it's one of those type of things. But this, I love the actual idea of Saw.
Yeah.
The movie's execution is not great, I don't think, and this is James Wan, who I think is a really good director as far as horror movies are concerned and everything like that. But I feel like this premise could have been better if the puzzles were more fun.
Yeah.
I know that they just want to. You want to give your horror audience a bunch of blood and stuff like that. I understand that. But man, if they were just a little bit more cerebral, I would be all about Saw, and I'd watch 20 of these things if it was like if there was more thought process.
If there were less, I know it's in the next movie, but if there were less like pits of used heroin needles.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Saw 2 is where they just decide, you don't really need any like smart puzzles at all, and let's put the dumbest people possible in a house, and then like give them a whole bunch of random rooms, and they don't matter anyway, and all this other bullshit. But this one was a really good start, and I was really shocked when Saw 2 went that direction and everything.
Yeah.
And then later on, like Saw 3 is an okay movie, but then like everything, I feel like after that. But this is, I think it's a good start, and then it just never. Another big romantic drama was The Notebook. We gotta talk about it, guys.
If I could make it through one viewing with my wife where she doesn't break down into tears and say she loved him so much, I would feel so much better about my life.
Right.
Every time, she's nothing. She's a puddle, and she's like, I loved her so much.
I've got to say, even though we send James Garner's cry face in the Sins video, that is a devastating moment. I mean, it's you know, but yeah, what do we like this movie?
No.
Yeah.
I only watched this movie because we did the Sins video, and I was expecting some semblance of quality because it's got such a reputation, and all the girls love it, and like Love Actually is probably a decent movie, right? Like, I watched this thing, and I was blown away at how after school specially it feels.
Yes.
Well,
it is.
It's Nicholas Sparks land, and this is the theme of all of his books and adaptations. We see this in Dear John and all these other like movies that they come out with. There's just this weird formula, like, you know, it's a couple that they're just so hot for each other. Then something like war breaks them up, and then the girl does something stupid or whatever, and then the guy has to win her back, and it's just that's that formula, you know, whatever.
Rachel McAdams had a great year, though.
Yeah, she did.
I mean, between this and or a big year at least, between this and Mean Girls.
Yeah.
She was hitting it. I mean, it's kind of a waste on such generic stuff of two really great actors, of, you know, Rich McAdams and Ryan Gosling. I don't know. It accomplishes what it wants to do, and I don't think we're its target audience.
No, we're not. I think it's the best of those Nicholas Sparks movies or whatever. But yeah, it's let's not talk about it anymore.
Good.
Also, we got to talk about this. The Village is the beginning of the end of M. Night Shyamalan. For a while, anyway. We might be seeing a little bit of a resurgence.
His stuff had been so good up to that point that 30 minutes in, I'm saying, well, he's too smart to make the twist that they're living in modern times. So I can't wait to see what he's going to do. No, he's not too smart. Even
if he doesn't make that twist, the problem is that the movie itself, all the way up leading to the twist, is not good either.
Right.
So even if he doesn't make that dumbass twist, then you still you're left with a bad movie, because, and that was what I kept thinking after I finished this movie the first time. I was like, yeah, so I don't like the ending, but it seemed like the whole thing was made for that ending.
Yeah.
Like like the idea for the whole script came up. What if it was Amish people or something like that? People who look like olden times, and they're actually living in, you know.
Yeah. Because when you go back, I think we talked about this. When you go back and you watch The Sixth Sense, even though it was spoiled for both of you, you still enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
And because it could stand on its own 2 feet. Unbreakable was the same thing, had a big twist ending and everything, but it was a good movie all the way through. This was like, it's a setup for the whammy at the end.
Yeah, and ultimately that's the reason why it fails so horribly for me. Is I could have even dealt with that ending if the rest of the movie was like in any way good at all. And there's a lot of good people in this too.
Yeah, there's a lot of good people in this.
Yeah, and so Team America came out.
One of your favorite comedies, I guess?
One of my favorites,
One of my favorite comedies, too.
Yeah.
Puppets doing inappropriate things.
Yes.
From the South Park creators.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm going to rock your world. Never saw it.
Whoa, really?
Never saw it all the way through, I should say. I've seen scenes. Never saw it.
That's a stunning revelation.
Well, here's what it is. It felt to me on the heels of the South Park movie like extremes with puppets. And I think that may be what it is. I haven't seen enough of it to really know, but I know there's like a awkward sex scene. I know there's that America fuck yeah. And I just thought, well, I kind of got all this humor from the South Park movie. And so I was just never drawn to it. And now over the years, you've raved about it so much.
I would watch this movie again, or try to watch this movie again. Because it is, I think now that there's 12 years removed from it and everything, you can watch this without thinking of South Park.
Yeah.
One thing I want to talk about with this movie is how amazing it looks. First off, they got Bill Pope, the Matrix cinematographer, to do this. And they also decorate all the sets with like really fun details, like they'll use quarters and stuff like that for like, for things that look like just regular building architecture or whatever. And just everything looks amazing about it. But man, yeah, this movie is funny as shit, man. And I watched it 2 nights in a row. I watched it on Wednesday night when we got it, and I watched it a Thursday night again, and I was still laughing my ass off. But yeah, America Fuck Yeah, like cracks my ass up every time, especially when you listen to the whole song like during the credits.
No, it continues there because South Park Bigger, Longer, Uncut, I think for all of us was a surprise that it was a musical.
Yeah.
And and the music was so good. In this, the music is fantastic. There's the America Fuck Yeah, and then there's the Freedom Isn't Free song.
No, there's the one where he's singing about how Michael Bay sucks and everything. Like Pearl Harbor sucks, and I love you, and like the scene that makes me laugh the most nowadays though is when he's got I think it's Spotswood tells him. Like, well, we haven't thought about everything that's going to happen out there, but for whatever does happen out there, we've given you a way out. And you think normally this is like where they give you the pill or whatever. He puts a hammer in front of him. There are a lot of like Trey Parker, Matt Stone, like pushing the envelope type of things in this, especially the sex scene, which I find hilarious.
Yeah.
And they went way farther.
They did.
But they cut that out. I wholly recommend this movie.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
If you're old enough. Okay, so Kill Bill Volume 2, we talked a little bit about Kill Bill Volume 1 last time. This is the better of the Kill Bill movies. It's got more dialogue, more stuff to sink your teeth into. Great ending to this movie. And I love it to pieces. Also, you talked a little bit about The Terminal when we were talking about Spielberg. This is one of the lower Spielberg movies. I mean, Hanks is really good in this. But it just never drew me in. It was a weird Spielberg movie for me.
And Hanks is doing a weird accent because it's just very loosely based on a true story about a dude that, for visa reasons, was basically living in an airport for a brief time. And so Hanks's accent, I think, is what kills it for me. But it's just not very funny. It's just kind of there.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's obviously very slick Spielberg production when you watch it, but it's just nothing really to connect to. More J-horror that got remade. The Grudge came out in 2004. Which, exactly. And the original also runs circles around this one, if you've ever seen it. The Grudge. The Aviator, Martin Scorsese's most going for the Oscar movie he's ever made. Gangs of New York was a launching point for that. The Aviator, let's do Howard Hughes. Let's get DiCaprio as Howard Hughes. Let's go through another biopic, by the way, when it comes down to it.
Oh, yeah.
And is probably one of his least watchable. I mean, it's good. It's a good movie. It's okay. But it's not one of the Scorsese's best. When you're watching it, you're like, you don't really feel Scorsese's fingerprints on this movie at all. Also, this one didn't connect as much as Dodgeball, but Starsky and Hutch remake, adaptation from a TV show. That was Todd Phillips. And, again, Vince Vaughn and Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson. One of the worst movies ever made, Alien vs. Predator, came out in 2004. One of the worst you'll ever see. One of my most miserable experiences watching a movie at midnight. Another White Chicks. What the fuck happened in 2004?
We also got, if you just want to do a what the fuck 2004, then don't skip Van Helsing, don't skip Catwoman.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, there were some real what the fuck movies that came
Hollywood
out.
made some bad decisions.
Yeah, Hellboy's okay. I liked Hellboy all right. The remake of The Manchurian Candidate came out.
Did you like this at all?
No. I mean, the original is just way better than this. Napoleon Dynamite came out.
Yeah, huge cold hit.
Yeah, very much so. One that I never really got into myself.
I liked it, but that was it.
It's got a very unique aesthetic.
It does. But it's definitely worth talking about because a lot of people love this movie so much, but I've never been that type of person. You really like this, don't you?
I like it a lot.
Yeah. Talk about it a little bit.
It's just a weird aesthetic. It's very indie feeling. There's no like beautiful movie stars in this.
Yeah.
John Heater's basically as nerdy as nerd gets. I talked about a few episodes ago that dance sequence that's completely out of nowhere and makes me feel triumphant every time at the talent show. But, you know, I think it's a fun movie.
Yeah, yeah. I went through a whole bunch of others here that I don't, had Alexander. Oliver Stone came out with an Alexander movie. There were supposed to be 2 Alexander movies. Baz Luhrmann was going to do another one, and then after this tanked, they were like, no.
And the 2 big documentaries that came out, just want to give them lip service. Super Size Me, Morgan Spurlock, eating McDonald's every day for like, what, a month or something like that?
Yeah, it was like something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and very unscientific.
Very unscientific.
But, interesting if you're into that kind of thing. He's definitely built a brand on it. And the other one is Michael Moore's divisive Fahrenheit 9/11, where everybody that is not liberal is a fiend.
Yes, pretty much.
It makes no bones. I mean, it's like basically like a Dinesh D'Souza. From the other
pretty
side,
much like that. Yeah, and it's got that famous, like we will not rest until we find the terrorists. Blah blah blah. Now watch this drive.
Well, while you're umming, I'll point out that Dennis Quaid was the hardest working man this year. None of these movies deserve to be talked about, really, but he was in Good Company, Flight of the Phoenix, Alamo, and Day After Tomorrow.
Jeez.
Oh,
that's
in
right.
1 year.
Day After Tomorrow came out and one of the biggest hits of this year.
Well, is that not? I mean, of that genre, I mean, the bar is set so low. Like
I can't
that's
allow what you're about
one
to say.
of the more watchable ones.
No.
You don't think so?
You should be tased for watching this movie.
Honestly,
Really?
I think no. I mean, and then
I'm comparing it to like 2012.
But
and like
it's the
bullshit
same guy.
They're the
and
same thing to me.
It's the same guy, and that's a stepping stone for 2012, I think. And it's just no. I mean, I see where you're going. Maybe so, like in some weird microcosm, it's a watchable.
I mean,
movie.
if you have to sit there and watch Roland Emmerich movies that are not ID4, then
I'm going to choose The Patriot. I gotcha.
Oh, all right. I have been properly chastened.
A movie that I thought was going to be great and was just shit, just total shit, was Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow.
Oh, God.
Remember the trailers for this?
Yes.
I was like, boy, this looks awesome. Holy crap. I can't wait till this comes out. And then you watch it and it's like,
No, it's terrible. It's a garbage fire.
Closer came out. I know everybody likes Closer in here. Closer came out in 2000.
We've talked about that
really
times.
good.
We have.
Oh, can I mention something?
Go for it.
A great movie that I don't think anybody talks about anymore is Hotel Rwanda.
Yeah.
I like that movie.
Man,
It's on my list.
That is a terrific movie.
Yeah, Don Cheadle's amazing.
He really is. And it is such a weird movie because there's this incredibly serious. 1 million Rwandans were killed over like 100 days.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout this movie, you almost think that you're watching like a regular business being operated.
Yeah.
Because he keeps the hotel, he wants to make sure that it looks like an operating hotel, even though he's accepting all these refugees. It is amazing.
Well,
it's really good.
and another thing about that movie that's so powerful is that they have the military down there, but they can't do anything.
Yeah, the UN.
Yeah, the UN. That's right.
Uh-huh.
They have the UN down there. They can't do anything. And it's like they're just basically allowing this type of shit to happen and everything. Also, Garden State, which I know is divisive.
Yeah.
It's.
Do you like this movie at all?
I haven't seen it since it came out, and I liked it when I watched it.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like, it samples, or it actually gets input from the Shins, this band called the Shins, an indie band, to do the soundtrack, and there's this song called New Slang in there. I like the Shins.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever go out of my way to listen to the Shins or anything like that. I feel exactly about this movie that I feel about the Shins.
It's pretty harmless.
Yeah.
I watched it and enjoyed it, but it has developed a weird backlash since then.
Yeah.
Where I think people like to hate on Zach Braff for some reason.
Well, and part of that is his punked appearance and all that, and where he I think he actually he did beat up a kid, but they didn't show that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Did he
something
really?
like that. Like if that turns out not to be true, you're obviously going to have to cut it off. But I think he actually beat up a kid during that punked episode where his car apparently gets beaten in.
He was,
And he was pissed off. You could see it in the the actual show where he's just yelling at the kid and everything. But later later on, you find out that they cut out the part where he actually punched that kid.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Chris does not advocate punching kids in the face.
Yeah.
No, but this is the second week in a row we talked about hitting kids.
Yeah, but maybe this one. Maybe this guy. Jersey Girl came out. I'm just bringing this up just because Kevin Smith made his first PG-13 movie. And then was unfortunately caught up in all the Bennifer shit with Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez, who's not even in the movie that much. It's not definitely one of his best, and some might even say it's his worst. But I love the scene where Ben Affleck takes his daughter to Sweeney Todd in the movie because he doesn't know it's this violent. And there's a point where he's just watching it normally, and then there's this big bloody scene and his jaw and hand drops and he's just his kid's just sitting there watching it oh, this is the funniest it's one of those great moments in movies, that's not a great movie, but I love that part. And then Wes Anderson, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou.
Oh, that is awful.
Yeah.
Not a fan.
Yeah, not a fan. I have watched it since it came out, and I like it better than I did the first time, but definitely not his best, and possibly his worst. Well, Darjeeling Limited might be his worst.
Oh, I like this much less.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's understandable. Did we miss anything else?
Okay, I might have the wrong years, but I'm waiting for you to bring up National Treasure. And
National
$1 Million
Treasure.
Baby.
I just skipped over it, and then $1 Million Baby. Yeah, was
neither. I think are going to require discussion we might vote for these movies.
Right.
I guess $1 Million Baby won some Oscars, so some people might think it's the best movie of this year.
Yeah. Clint Eastwood is sort of in a zone at this point where almost everything he makes gets Oscar consideration. And Hilary Swank gets another win for this. She's won 2 Oscars, and I feel like she's the most winningest Oscar actress in history that we forget about all the time.
Wasn't she immortalized in an Office episode shortly after this where they were asking if she was hot or not?
Oh,
and then they had
I don't remember that.
He had her picture up there, and they were all voting, and they're like, "Well, she's got symmetry and stuff like that."
Yeah, I know a lot of people who think she looks like Matt Damon. And
okay.
I've always liked Hilary Swank, though.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about her looks and everything. I don't really feel comfortable
Matt
doing
Damon is a handsome man.
Yeah, exactly. Matt Damon's a handsome man. But $1 Million Baby, I like this movie. I do think that it's another one of those that it's basically built around the whammy and everything.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty sizable whammy.
Yeah.
I actually thought it was heading another way because Morgan Freeman looks like he's about to be the whammy in this movie because he's all drunk and crap. Yeah. And I was just like, Morgan, I see where this is going. It's not that. Yeah. It's something else. But yeah, another movie that feels kind of they kind of we're manipulating you a little bit and everything, and that's become sort of a trademark of the Paul Haggis script because Crash comes later.
Yeah. Haggis.
Yes.
The only other thing Jeremy, want to mention is that how Hollywood often does pairs, right? So just this week it was announced that Scarlett Johansson and Jennifer Lawrence are both making biopics about F. Scott Fitzgerald's wife.
Oh, wow.
But we also had, the famous ones are Ants and Bug's Life and Armageddon and Deep Impact and Dante's Peak and Volcano. This year is my favorite one ever because somehow we got 2 comedies about the president's daughter.
Yeah.
One was called First Daughter and one was called Chasing Liberty.
Yeah.
And I don't know why one of those didn't back off because that is the stupidest thing to put your foot down on and go, well, we're going to do ours too.
Yeah.
There's not even really room for one of those.
They even fought for the same release date with that shit.
Oh, man.
But you mentioned National Treasure, which we should bring up too, is the National Treasure was a fun movie.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Another movie that's been ruined by sequel or whatever. The first one's good, kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean, good movie, and then the sequels fuck everything up. But yeah, I mean, it's a nice, fun Indiana Jones type of movie with Nicolas Cage being all, I mean, it's got
Sean Bean being Beanie.
Yeah, very Beanie.
It's so funny you said that because my friend Josh, who biggest Indiana Jones fan you'll ever meet, it's gospel to him. And our roommate Kevin came home from seeing National Treasure and was like, man, it kind of felt like Indiana Jones. And Josh was like, you shut your mouth. But then Kevin realized it was bothering him. And within 5 minutes, he was like, this movie's better than Indiana Jones. And he was just needling Josh for the sake of it. And it was one of my favorite conversations to witness ever.
Another one that Matthew Vaughn came out with Layer Cake. There's another good one that came out in this year. And then I don't know, are we
going to talk about Bourne Supremacy?
Ooh.
I really like it. This is one of those series that I think everyone gets better. I think the Ultimatum's the best. I think Supremacy is the second best. And the Identity is the least awesome of the three, even though they're all awesome. I really like Supremacy. I don't know how you guys feel.
Yeah,
it's great.
Supremacy is great. I like Ultimatum. Well, wait a minute. No, I don't know. I think I like Supremacy better than Ultimatum.
You're allowed.
Because Ultimatum felt like more the same to me from what Supremacy did. But I think maybe Ultimatum might still be a better movie, even though I like Supremacy better.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do love one of my favorite Bourne scenes, period, is when he lets himself get captured by the Italian cops at the airport, and he just sits there. He doesn't move or anything, and the guy can't get any information out of him because Bourne knows sooner or later a high-ranking CIA official is going to call this guy.
Yeah.
And when that happens, beat down, leave, and then he basically clones the phone.
Yeah.
That's how he learns Pamela Landy's name. Then he goes and finds which hotel she's staying at. Just shows off his genius so much in that one little scene.
Yeah. Okay, and then the Polar Express also came out.
Yeah.
I remember making a bet with my projectionist friends that The Incredibles would destroy this at the box office. And they're like, no, man.
Oh, really?
No, man. Polar Express is definitely, I mean, it's got the Thanksgiving release date and all that. And I was like, you don't know Pixar then. And sure enough, Incredibles destroyed this movie at the box office, even though Polar Express still did pretty boffo business, but man, I
really didn't like
it at all.
Especially those goddamn Aerosmith elves at the end.
No,
Fuck you, movie. What the hell?
What is that? The people all over the world, whatever song he plays. iRobot came out also this year, and also an Oceans movie that I think nobody likes but me, Ocean's 12.
That's correct.
I think this movie is hilarious because it is so aware of itself.
It is.
All the way through it. And yes, they made this movie to take a vacation. There's no doubt about it. But I love every bit of it because it's because it knows that's what it is the entire time. The whole thing with you look like Julia Roberts and Matt Damon explaining to Bruce Willis he thinks he figured out the Sixth Sense before and the whole thing with Vincent Cassell dancing through those lasers.
That was cool as shit.
Yeah. And for what we ultimately find out is for nothing.
Yeah.
is fantastic. And that's why I've always loved that movie. Matt Damon, did this movie, and then Eurotrip was being made, was made pretty close to that. That's how you get to do the Scotty didn't know and all that other type of stuff in Eurotrip. Yeah. So now have we gotten everything?
I think we got it, man.
It was a busy year, man.
Yeah, it was a fun year.
Well, and another movie that I gotta bring up, Before Sunset came out. It's the middle part of this Before Sunrise and all that series. And Friday Night Lights also came out in this year. So lots of stuff we could have talked about here. I think we're probably gonna end up missing like 5 more movies.
Yeah.
But all right, what's the order?
Today's order is Jeremy, Chris, and Barrett.
All righty.
Incredibles.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
If I could have a relationship with a movie and my wife would allow it, this would be one of the candidates. I love it. It makes me feel all the feels at various different points. It's Brad Bird's mastery at work. It's the best superhero movie ever made and the best movie Pixar's made.
You know what came to me when I was looking at this movie? It's kind of the real version of the Sokovia Accords, right? Isn't it? Because didn't they ban superheroes from superheroing? Isn't
yeah. In this movie, they had to get anonymous and go underground. Yeah. It was all because of that lawsuit. Mr. Sansweet, man, he ruined everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I'm going to go with Sky Captain. I'm just kidding.
Surprise!
After all that talk about how it's terrible and everything. No, I'm going to go with Sideways on this one.
Oh wow.
I don't know. I feel like this is Paul Giamatti at his best, and it's Alexander Payne at his best, and it's it's just a very good small movie, and I love The Incredibles. Obviously, I just think this one has a little bit more to it than overall. So I mean, it's really a decision between 3 or 4 movies here, and I ended up on this one.
Yeah, it was like I said, it was tough to narrow it down and pick a vote because I like almost all these movies here about the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because when we first started out, we were talking about cultural impact and like how big things are relative to what we like and everything. And now we've kind of gotten to where it's like it's so diluted, I guess, that we have to pick what we think is literally the best.
Right.
And so my pick is not, a huge cultural impact, but it's Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think this movie is one of my favorite of the decade for sure, and probably in my top 20 of all time.
Yeah.
I can watch it anytime. The characters are terrific. The actors are wonderful. And the direction, maybe it's my music video aesthetic, but I love it so much.
Yeah.
I really kind of want to throw out like Spider-Man 2 just to keep things rolling, but my second vote was Sideways.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that's going to put us on a course to maybe be done after this round.
We'll
see how you guys vote.
No, because I'm going to say The Incredibles.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I mean, for everything that Jeremy just said and everything. I mean, this is the first time I've ever felt like a cartoon transcended cartoons.
Yeah.
And everything. It's the first time I really felt that way, and it's how good this movie is.
Wow. I have the deciding vote.
You do.
Because my pick is one of those two.
Oh, wow.
And
it's going to be Sideways.
It's a movie that I'm going to watch tonight that I borrowed from Chris because my son got so excited about me talking about it, and it's The Incredibles.
Yeah.
It's not Sideways. It would be weird if I showed my 8-year-old son Sideways.
Once you started talking about the sun thing, I knew where it was going.
Yeah.
But, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, no, it's a terrific, for everything we've said, it's I agree. It's definitely Pixar's best movie. It's one of the best animated movies of all time, if not the best. And it's probably the best superhero movie.
Yeah, got to go with it. Yeah, we did good, guys.
Woo-hoo. Yay! All right, since the United States presidential election is coming up in the next couple... Oh, my God. Isn't that weird? We are going to talk some about election movies today.
Who cares about this stupid election?
That's politics, baby. Get what you can out of someone, then crush them.
You all think I'm late. Well, I'm not late. Are you not entertained?
Happy birthday, Mr. President.
Democracy is founded on one simple rule. Get out there and vote or I will kill you.
And, I think this is going to be a little bit more free form than usual. We're going to talk about, some of our best ones, our favorite ones, and all that. But I'll go ahead and start it since we were talking about Sideways a lot. Alexander Payne made a movie called Election that we all like, and we've talked about quite a bit on this. We don't really need to go too much more into it, but we all love this movie tremendously, and it's actually a really good look at I believe, like, even in a small, like, school class president type of an election and everything, it gives us a little microcosm of what an actual national election is like, because there's mudslinging, there's just silliness. One of the things about election that I love, that's one of the biggest parts of the movie that I love, is when Chris Klein's character goes into the voting booth, and he's Paul Metzler, you Betzler. There's the self-narration, and this is where narration is actually done very well in a movie. He goes into the booth and he says, I don't know, it just always felt wrong to vote for yourself and everything. So he votes for Tracy Flick, who's Reese Witherspoon's character. When they count the votes at the very end, Tracy Flick wins by 1 vote.
Yep.
Which, if he would just vote for himself, would have ended this whole thing, and Mr. McAllister, the Matthew Broderick character, wouldn't have gone through all this disposing of 2 votes and all that. We also find out during this disposing of the votes that more people didn't vote, and they were probably Paul's sister's fan fans more than anybody. They would have voted Paul's sister in.
Yeah, third-party candidate.
At the very end of this, if it wasn't for the fact that she gets expelled from school.
Yeah.
So I love the little ironies of election and everything, and I love how it shows, like, it feels like, even though, the class president thing doesn't feel like it's going to impact your lives very much. At school, class president doesn't really mean much, but it also, I feel like, sort of tells you that the president himself, the United States, doesn't really matter much to your everyday life either, really. I mean, there's some things he does that you're like, okay, yeah, I mean, I guess under Obama or George W. Bush, this happened or whatever, but you pretty much go through your life the same way.
Well, and the president doesn't have total autonomous authority on basically anything.
Yeah.
Like, it's got to go through Congress.
Right.
Congress has a lot more say over your day-to-day life than the president does. And to that matter, your local alderman and mayor does more than Congress does. But I don't want to actually talk politics. I want to talk politics in movies.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about Wag the Dog.
Ooh, good one.
Now, I emailed you guys last night and said I need to watch this again because I bet this plays even better today than it did when it came out. This is about basically some PR guys that manufacture a war.
Yes.
To the point where they hire Kirsten Dunst to be the Albanian refugee girl carrying a cat. They plant an old record in the Library of Congress that they can refer to and make the rallying cry of this war against, I think it's Albania.
It's Albania, yeah.
Dustin Hoffman, Robert De Niro, freaking stellar cast, but I haven't seen it in like 9 or 10 years. I can't really quote the jokes that much, but it has that State and Maine kind of behind-the-scenes comic feel to it.
Which is not surprising because David Mamet was a co-screenwriter on Wag the Dog.
I did not realize that.
This is, I think this is as much about politics as it is about Hollywood, too. It's really funny because Dustin Hoffman is a producer and he wants credit. He's, that's his big thing. He wants the credit. He even says something towards the end. He's like, they don't make any Oscars for producers or whatever. And I'm sitting there like, they make Best Picture. That's a producer. But he's like, but his whole thing is driving him is that he wants to have credit for this.
Oh, it's consuming. Even De Niro's like, you're playing with your life right now. He's like, fuck my life. I want the credit.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
and Well, spoil it.
Yeah, you talking about the Kirsten Dunst thing is like there's a point where she's like an actress who's been hired and everything, and she's like a normal, like has an agent and all this other type of stuff. It's like, and she's like, well, who's going to see this and who's going to see this and be able to know? And like De Niro's like, you can't tell anybody you did this. You can't tell anybody you did this. He's like, why not? So guys will hunt you down and kill you. She's pretty clear about it.
Well, that's how he initially presents it to Dustin Hoffman's character. This producer, he's like, well, what we want to do is we want to, do a war. It's a pageant, and you get stuff, you get a theme song. It's a pageant.
Yeah, and then, Robert De Niro likes to say blah 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 a lot in this, like blah blah blah, and whatever, and you get the thing. But yeah, it comes out during the Clinton administration, and Clinton is probably best known as the Lothario of the Oval Office. Basically, he had so many of these scandals and everything. This one's a lot worse than Wag the Dog. The president is accused of having it's like a sexual assault of basically a Girl Scout, basically is what it is. And they have to invent, and the election's in 11 days.
Yeah.
So they have to come up with, a way to distract the American people. And it's this Albanian, this war on Albania. And they don't even fill in the details. They let the reporters come up with that on their own, basically. Yeah.
It's a terrifying movie.
Yes, it is.
Because it's not that out of the realm of possibility as you may think. So Robert De Niro's character is a spin doctor. And he does this scarily accurately.
Yeah.
Because as you see, we don't have to get into politics too much, but you see the spin of politicians where you'll ask them a straight question and they will answer a completely different question. And it'll get the interviewer so confused. Never is that more apparent than when William H. Macy's character is talking to them.
Yeah.
And he's a CIA operative. And he comes in, he sits down, and he says, I know that there's no war. I know we've got satellites. We've got looking at it, and Robert De Niro's like, "What are you satellites? Wait, you got satellites? Why aren't they showing a war? Because it's a fucking war right there."
Yeah.
And eventually, he changes the conversation so much.
Yeah.
Of like, there is no war, to where he almost convinces him there's a war.
You don't know that
there's not.
Yeah, you don't know there's a war or not. So,
So, do you like your job? I'm doing my job, And it's the loudest voice in the room, usually wins an argument. And when you change the narrative and everything, that's so much American politics that it gets a little scary to me.
Yeah.
Well, since you mentioned Clinton being a Lothario, let's move into primary colors for a minute.
Yeah.
Now, this was a book first, and it was quite a hot topic because nobody knew who wrote it for the longest time, and it was very clearly about Clinton,
yes,
even though
it was.
the names had been changed. And you'd think there were scandals in the White House. There were scandals during the run to the White House. And so here we get Travolta playing a fictionalized Clinton. Billy Bob Thornton's in this.
Playing Carville, basically.
Yeah. Emma Thompson is playing Hillary.
Yeah.
We've got Kathy Bates as like possibly mentally unstable. Private investigator who also has a super foul mouth.
Yeah.
I find this movie super watchable. I don't know about you guys.
Oh, I haven't seen it in forever, but I've read the book and I've watched the movie of this, and yeah, it is fascinating because it is based on what this, I guess it was a Clinton aide or a Clinton.
No, it was actually
a reporter.
A reporter, yeah.
It was a reporter, yeah. And but I find all that stuff fascinating because it's got a lot of it's very dirty details in this, like it's played off as satire. And this is Mike Nichols directing this one, but it's got that satirical edge to it so that it doesn't feel too on the nose, but. Man, this is as on the nose as it gets, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially what Clinton did in real life that still amazes me is that he was basically a nobody. No one was giving him any chance until basically a handful of months out, and he went from nobody to front runner, despite all the scandals.
Yeah,
which blows my mind. But just the inner workings of a campaign and being on the road and the crappy hotels and coffee shops, and then it's got a lot of dry humor because all of these people know the man they're working for is a nightmare and he's driving them insane, but they also think he's a better choice than the Republican counterpart. And anyway, I just really enjoy it.
This movie brings up something that's inherent in all of these movies that are on the more rah-rah side of the ending. Is I'm gonna do what nobody else does. I'm gonna talk the truth to you.
Yeah.
And that's why people like these movies, I think, is because you don't ever get that from actual politicians. They may say that, but then something like Bulworth or something like The American President or something like this, where they're like, I'm just going to get right to it. I'm going to say what nobody else will say, and that kind of thing. And that's kind of what he does, but then he goes back into kind of a traditional campaign. So I guess that's the appeal of these types of things.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, if you ever really want to see the actual Clinton rise to president and everything, watch the documentary The War Room, which has George Stephanopoulos and James Carville and all these guys.
Is that what was parodied on Documentary
Now? It was parodied on Documentary Now, where Fred Armisen's playing Stephanopoulos basically, and Hader's playing Carville. But yeah, it's the Documentary Now. The one that they did on that is they got this politician who didn't really want to win. Yeah, he's just
saying nice things.
He's
about
saying
his
nice things about his opponent and all of that type of stuff. And they get him, and then Hader, who's the Carville character, really goes deep and down hard trying to get this guy to win and everything, telling outright lies to get him in there. But yeah, if you ever really want to see how that the election machine works, go and watch The War Room. It's a pretty good documentary. You mentioned Bulworth.
Mm-hmm.
In this election is as close to Bulworth as I've seen, in real life.
Yeah, Bulworth is accidentally predictive of the Trump campaign, isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of is. Now, Beatty in this is, I believe he is the Republican.
No, he's Democratic.
Is he Democratic?
Yeah.
Okay. But
because he has that whole speech in South Central where he's like, the Democratic Party is going to have this platform where they say they're going to work for you. We're just going to say that for election cycle, and we're going to drop it.
Okay. I for whatever reason, because what sets this movie off is his deal with the arms people.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just like a very Republican thing. So like, but anyway, he's suicidal, and he starts to go basically crazy on television cameras telling the truth, basically. And he's like rapping and all this other type of stuff.
Poorly.
Extremely poorly. Yes, extremely poorly. And so basically what he does is he keeps talking to like people who are on the outside. Like he runs into like Halle Berry and all these people, and they're there's a big scene with Don Cheadle too, where he runs in and Don Cheadle tells him there's no education going on in that motherfucker, talking about schools and everything. And he ends up incorporating all that stuff into his own speeches and everything. It's like, the schools, there's no education going on in that motherfucker on TV and everything. Meanwhile, as he's telling the truth or telling it like it is and all this other type of stuff, he's very much angering Paul Sorvino's character, who is the head of this gun lobby or the NRA or whatever. And I think one of the most poignant moments of Bulworth's not a great movie by any means. It's got some, I'd say it's very solid. But one of the most poignant moments is when Beatty is Bulworth is talking about how the gun lobby and all these other people are paying for this debate anyway. So we say whatever, you say whatever the media just wants us to say whatever, they want us to say. So, forget about just the truth and everything like that. And Paul Sorvino's like sitting there just like, he's getting very angry during all this whole thing, because he has basically told the truth. He's basically saying these guys are paying for your debates and everything. Yeah. So what do you can't say anything true anymore because, it's all paid for and everything. But yeah, I would, if you want to see something that's just like very close to what our election is right now, watch Bulworth because it's crazy because he gets very popular by doing this.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Game Change. Have you guys seen that one?
Yeah, I love Game Change.
This is basically the fictionalized telling of the Sarah Palin vice presidency campaign with John McCain. You want to talk about a killer cast. Mm-hmm. This is a killer cast. Woody Harrelson, Julianne Moore's playing Sarah Palin. The gal who played Marcia Cross on the OJ, People versus
Sarah Paulson.
She's in it. And I didn't expect to like this movie. Because I ultimately don't really care that much about politics. I find it very hard to get worked up about either side. But the portrayal here of the campaign, how they took the misstep of not vetting her properly before they brought her on, it's a fucking roller coaster because they know she's inexperienced and she goes out at that convention speech and just as she did in real life hits a fucking home run.
Yeah.
Fires up the Republican base and all the handlers are like, yes, we did the right thing. And it's like weeks and months later they're still learning like she can't think of the name of a newspaper and all this other crazy shit that basically derailed that campaign and how crazy she drives Sarah Paulson to the point where she quits. She demands things. Again, this is probably fictionalized. I wasn't there. I'm not saying this is about Sarah Palin, but the character in this movie, Sarah Palin, demands things that are literally impossible. And screams at the handlers who can't do these impossible things. I was riveted.
Yeah, Ed Harris has an amazing performance in this. You can't say that this was, I don't know, maybe you could say that this is a very partisan movie, that it's making her out to be buffoonish and that kind of thing. But the portrayal of John McCain's character is not overly buffoonish or antagonistic or something like that.
He comes off looking good in this movie.
Well, he's got that one moment where the campaign really wants him to go after this Jeremiah Wright thing with Obama. And he plays it so beautifully where it's like he makes a decision. We're just not going to go that way. That's not who I am. That's not even this high stakes campaign. I'm not going to go there. I love that moment. This is a great movie.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Yeah, you want to talk about The American President?
Yeah, I love American President.
It's a prequel to The West Wing.
It really is. Yep. Oh, man, talk about a cast, man.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, Michael Douglas, Martin Sheen, Michael J. Fox.
Annette Bening.
David Paymer.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is, and Richard Dreyfuss, too.
Yeah,
Richard Dreyfuss playing.
He plays like very cartoony Republican in this.
He does, man. And he talk
it's
about
beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
The reason I bring this up is another example of like an Aaron Sorkinized rah-rah speech at the end where he's in the press conference and he's looking right at the camera and he's like, what is it, Bob Rumson?
Yeah, my name is Bob Rumson and I am running for president.
And then he's like, my name is whatever his name is. And he's like, and I am president.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's like, it really is a beautiful speech and everything. And everybody just trickles in to watch it and everything. And he's like, if you want to have a debate about character, don't go after my girl, come after me because she's out of your league.
Yeah.
And man, like you get fired up with that speech.
Yeah.
But it's so crazy because he uses this press conference to basically be a political commercial.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, this movie does something really interesting, I think, and that's play with the idea of a single president.
Yeah.
And how would the country react to that president dating? To the first time his date sleeps over in the White House, and how much would they pry into her private life? And we've never had that in the modern media era. There's probably a president that was single back before I was born. How would we react?
Yeah.
I think it would be a lot like what happens in this movie.
Isn't it kind of like Richard Dreyfuss's character can't go after him in his first term because his wife had died, and now it's like all fair game.
Right. I love that line too, where he's talking about sex and nervousness, and he's talking about how like none of the first ladies in the history of the White House ever were nervous about having sex with their president husbands because they knew them before they were presidents. And it's like, and now you know me only as the president, so let's get it on already.
It's a great subplot of him just bound and determined to buy roses for her on his own. When he like calls the rose shop and they don't believe it's him, and he just has all these mishaps and eventually ends up going there physically and walking in and shocking the hell out of the rose shop workers. I really like this movie a lot. You can tell for sure this movie came out and somebody said, we should make a TV series out of this, because all of the characters are there. They're being played by different actors. Martin Sheen just slides from the advisor role into the president role with ease, by the way. But yeah, I would watch it right now.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me about that final scene is, when Annette Bening comes in, she's like, I was in the neighborhood or whatever, and they hug and, start to kiss. And like his whole staff comes in and they're like, oh, hey, how's it going? And then they start to brief him, and then another one comes, Michael J. Fox comes, hey, how's it going? And they they just walk in.
Yeah. It's like there's no need to hide it.
You're still the fucking president.
Yeah, exactly. Another one of the big political movies is The Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah.
The Frank Sinatra 1962 movie. John Frankenheimer directed.
Oh, yeah.
It is a scary ass movie. It's almost a horror movie. It's almost a horror movie because it's basically like taking your Red Scare that's going back in the 50s and 60s and everything and saying, ooh, here is something that is really like evil lurking beneath the surface that you didn't know. Angela Lansbury in this movie is fucking evil.
She's evil, right?
She is absolutely the most evil fucking person I think one of the most evil people I've ever seen in a movie.
That's
because she's nice on the outside. This is very political theater.
Yeah.
Very nice on the outside. Knows how to make the appearance and everything. Behind closed doors is the person who's pulling all the strings.
Yeah, she's pulling every string, right? Like even it wasn't there a part where he tries to get back with his girlfriend or something like that?
Yeah, that now this is the part that's really fucking like just disgusting in this movie, okay? The guy okay, so first off you have Lawrence Harvey who's the guy who plays Shaw, who's like the son of Angela Lansbury. Frank Sinatra plays the guy who kind of like gets out of under his hypnotized spell basically and learns what's going on and knows he is like the main, he's going to be the guy that they're trying to control and everything. There is a story that Shaw tells where he says because he's shown to be a hard person to get to like. He's a loner. He's kind of like, he doesn't have, he's very stern, all this type of stuff. But he tells this story about how he met this woman, and girl that he meets is gorgeous. By the way, this is as happy as he's ever been, but the problem is she's the daughter of a senator that Angela Lansbury doesn't like, and he basically tells him, you can't continue dating this girl. He's gonna marry this girl, all this other type of stuff, and everything's perfect. And he has to send like a letter to her saying, apparently it says vile, disgusting letter, which probably means like a whole bunch of like, and yeah, she makes him not date this girl anymore and everything. And then she's got like even more like sinister things involved with all this. How is she mixed up with all this? The Manchurian Candidate is basically they went to Korea. They get captured by Russians basically, and the Russians send them to Manchuria, someplace in China or whatever, and they do this experiment on them.
Brainwashing.
It's
right?
brainwashing, and it's an incredible scene because they're all sitting there like all these soldiers, Frank Sinatra, Lawrence Harvey, all these guys are just kind of sitting in this room, just kind of like they look listless and not interested in anything, have no affect whatsoever. There's all these people in Manchuria. It's like one of those surgery things, like those where they're doing surgery and there's like an audience and all other type of stuff. All these guys are watching them down there, but in their minds, they think it's like a woman talking about a book club or whatever. So it cuts back and forth between like actual Korean. They keep cutting back and forth between them. So this is how this process works and all this other type of stuff. And then like. And when it comes back to their perspective, oh, it's just a lady talking about her book club or whatever. And this is,
so when they're brainwashing them not to necessarily kill somebody, but to have a trigger to do whatever somebody says to do. Right?
Basically anything that they tell them to do and it's like the Queen of Diamonds is their trigger. So if they play solitaire or whatever, I don't know what compels them to play solitaire or whatever. There's something that compels them to play it. Anytime the Queen of Diamonds shows up, they are then susceptible to anything. Like there's even a part where they're just randomly at a bar. Lawrence Harvey pulls out a deck of cards. And the Queen of Diamonds shows up, and the bartender just says something like, "Why don't you get?" He's telling a story to some other people in the bar. And it's like, I told that guy, "Why don't you get in a cab and jump in the lake?" And you see Lawrence Harvey get up and start walking out, and he jumps in the lake and everything. But yeah, the whole thing is about political assassination. It's about the Russians infiltrating America and trying to get communism into the country and everything. Through Angela Lansbury, basically. And it's just a frightening movie. It's horrifying in so many ways. Not to say that this type of stuff could happen or does happen, but it is something to chew on and think about, and it's entertaining and everything. So,
definitely. Yeah,
anyway, that movie is really good. It's it didn't get, a lot of Oscar love. Angela Lansbury very deservedly got a nomination for it. I feel like Frank Sinatra probably could have, and Lawrence Harvey probably.
He's great.
Frank Sinatra has a way better movie career than we give him credit. 2 Oscar nominations for this guy. One for The Man with the Golden Arm, which is you would never think that a movie from the 50s would discuss heroin overdoses and stuff like that. Yeah. That one did, and in the way that it could in the 50s and everything, and for you Ministry fans, Just One Fix. That's where all that comes.
All you Ministry fans.
Yeah. They could go along with the Rutger Hauer fan club, and they're in there somewhere. But
he was great in like Guys and Dolls. He was in the original Ocean's 11, right?
Yeah, he was in the original Ocean's 11. He won the Oscar for From Here to Eternity. Supporting actor in that. But yeah, he's really good in this, and I think he probably today has an underrated acting resume and everything. But anyway, what else?
I'd like to talk about Dave, even though we have before. I think this is the best political comedy ever.
Yeah.
It's just so fucking charming. I find myself smiling awkwardly the entire time I'm watching it, like I'm a goofy little kid. But Kevin Kline, this is maybe my favorite Kevin Kline performance or role ever. And I don't want to go into everything, but he's a guy who plays a lookalike of the real president. The real president has a medical emergency. They hire the lookalike to stand in and then find him hard to control as they go throughout. Fantastic movie. Check it out if you have not.
Frank Langella is in that, right? Is one of the...
He's basically the villain.
The handlers. And he was Nixon in Frost Nixon, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, he's connected to these, just seems perfect for that type of role.
Yeah.
And dated Whoopi Goldberg for a while.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, wow.
I think
That's
Dan
right.
Hedaya has played Nixon a couple of times, too.
He did in Dick.
He did in Dick. Yeah.
That's a fun movie.
Well, the crazy thing is, I think I wrote on that email that Richard Nixon could have his own category, right?
Yeah, he really could.
There's so many. And actually, it's strange because there's Nixon, the Anthony Hopkins one, Frost Nixon, Dick, All the President's Men. The Fog of War is about it came
the
out
Errol
last year.
Morris one, yeah.
Yeah, and there's something called The Assassination of Richard Nixon.
Yeah,
too,
which Sean Penn was in.
Yeah. So I mean, that obviously, I guess if you're the only president that has resigned, in modern history, then you get a lot of stuff. And he was ripe for parody and for more investigation, more ways than one. But it's just interesting to me that he's such a fascinating figure. Of course, JFK, right around that era, was a huge interest in American presidents.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of my favorite movies of all time is All the President's Men.
Mm-hmm.
Another one I've read the book on, and I've watched the movie 1,000 times and everything. It is so riveting how this is just one of those type of genres that I just love. I mean, forget about that it's a true story and all this other type of stuff, but I just find it fascinating how they collect their information all the way through this. The story about basically the story of Woodward and Bernstein.
Yeah.
They don't get anybody who really wants to talk, and they have to figure out basically tricks to figure out how to get people to say something on the record and everything. They've got to find those like outer edges first and then move their way in. And I love how they get the one woman who's given them a little bit of information before, and they've decided that, like, what I'll do is I'll say P stands for Porter, and you say no, we already know that P is this or whatever, and then so they do that whole thing. We already know P is Porter. Like, what we're trying to find out is this, and she goes, who told you about Porter? And it's like, and you're sitting there going, you did. You told him about Porter. It's one of those. I just love that so much how they do that, and of course, Deep Throat in this is Hal Holbrook, and like one of his great performances too,
along with Fletch too.
Yeah, along with Fletch too. Yeah. But yeah, he's pretty fantastic in this, and I just love how they just they go and find all this information.
It's almost as much a movie about investigative journalism as it is politics, and that's what's always fascinated me about it is that kind of angle. Because I was born in '75, so I really missed all of the Nixon stuff when it was happening in real life. So I wasn't exactly drawn to watch a political scandal movie, but this is the way they went about getting, like you said, getting all the information and how they had to do it and how resourceful they were. There's a reason Woodward and Bernstein names are like holy names in the world of journalism. So.
Well, and just the fact that, that nobody believed the story for a really long time. They were printing this stuff that wasn't going on the front page.
Yeah.
And then finally they had to get those breaks. And when they get those breaks, it's so exhilarating and everything. If you haven't ever seen All the President's Men, I suggest go and watch that.
Why don't they make more movies? I mean, it's so weird that you don't think of like journalists as being, especially like all the mundane type of stuff. But it seems like when they make it right, like this or Zodiac or Spotlight, like they tend to knock it out of the park if they have good stories. I wish they would make more of that stuff.
Yeah. I don't know why. I mean,
The Paper with Michael Keaton.
Yeah, totally.
You were talking about The Candidate just recently.
Yeah. For whatever, like I used to when Blockbusters existed, I used to walk past this cover of Robert Redford and a bubble being blown out of his mouth, and I thought, oh, okay, this must be some funny political comedy, and it's not a drama really. I mean, it's not a comedy either, but it's kind of a unique way of going about an election. This is Peter Boyle plays this guy who is like a campaign advisor or whatever, and he wants to get the son of this former California governor to run against the Republican incumbent. And the Democrats don't want to run against him because they know it's a sure loss and everything like that. So he gets Robert Redford to play this guy, to be a basically fodder for this Republican nominee. But I never quite got what the point was, because there is a point where it says here, you're gonna lose by a landslide. It was like, isn't that the point? We're gonna lose, and he's like, well, no, you'll be devastated in this one. You'll I guess the point is to get a Democratic face out there and then maybe run him some other time or whatever. But I never really got that on my first viewing. But it's funny, like he's very idealistic, and he talks about what he wants to talk about at first, and you find out that nobody really wants to listen to that type of stuff. They want like the dumbed down type of, like, they want all these different phrases and all this other stuff. The guy is running with these ads that are just very straightforward and, hey, I'm a man of the people and all this other type of stuff. So Redford is trying to do all this stuff the right way or whatever, and he's not. I mean, you see him at a rally or whatever, quote unquote, where there's like 5 people out in the audience and everything, and he's having a hard time communicating to people. And then finally, when he starts doing those little, like, dumbed down things, he starts to get higher up in the polls and everything. And there's a point where he says, like, he's talking about the watershed. There's like fires going on in these California, woods or something like that. And he's talking about, like, we need to do this. Our senator has never voted for a watershed or whatever. But then the senator comes flying in on a helicopter and says, we're going to start voting for a watershed, that type of, so it's like, it's stuff like that. And then there's a point where Redford's like, I really would like to debate you sometime. And the Republican guy's like, I don't blame you one bit. And he walks over, but he finally once he starts rising in the polls, he finally gets his debate or whatever. And that's where, his campaign takes another sort of a turn or whatever. I mean, I don't think it's really spoiling it to tell you that he wins this election. And they at the end, he and Peter Boyle are in the room, and Redford's like, so what now? And the credits roll.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that was a fascinating movie. Yeah, liked it.
You want to move to questions?
Yeah, we can go to questions.
Probably do that.
Let's do it.
Question. I got something to say. I want the truth.
I'm listening.
So the first one comes from our subreddit. It's an interesting question that I think we all were kind of engaged in. What are your favorite, quote, cult movies? It's a weird question because a lot of cult movies fall into a variety of styles and genres. Another question is, what does it take for a movie to have cult status? So basically, I guess we can kind of reverse that and start with what makes a movie a cult movie.
You know what? This is a very interesting thing, because the first thing I did was I was trying to get some inspiration for this question. And I went to Wikipedia, and they have a cult movies entry in there. And the movies they entered were absurd as far as cult classics are concerned. Citizen Kane is in there.
What?
And I was like, no.
Wikipedia.
Like, I mean, I can see under some weird definition, like it didn't do great in theaters and it's become a classic. But so many people love Citizen Kane now that what's the cult here?
Yeah.
The cult to me means it's a small but rabid fan base.
There you go.
And they mentioned this question mentions What We Do in the Shadows, right? Which is by the way, I recommend watching that movie. It's pretty funny.
It's the Jermaine
Clement, the vampire movie. Yeah, it's really fun, and that's a pretty good place to start because it didn't do anything in theaters. But most of the people that you run into that have seen this movie swear by it. It's pretty great, So that's what I would define as cult. So it didn't do anything in theaters. It found life, but didn't find so much life that it became a franchise or
well,
something
Austin
later.
Powers is the good example.
Right.
It was originally a cult classic because it didn't do shit. Nobody saw it. And then on video for 2 or 3 years, it blew up.
Yeah.
But then it blew up so far that it like set box office records when the sequel came out. It's making hundreds of millions of dollars. No longer a cult classic. That does not apply.
Right. And by the same token, on the other end of it, I'm when we were emailing back and forth about this, I love Zero Effect, and I love The Quick and the Dead, but haven't run into very many people other than me who have really, really enjoyed it. And I've run into people who like it, obviously, but it's not been like everywhere I go, I run into people who love Zero Effect and Quick and the Dead. So where's the cult there? There's no cult. There's just a few people.
Yeah.
So Jeremy, what's yours?
Well, my initial response when I look at the criteria that I think we all kind of generally settled on was Locke.
Yeah.
A movie that I don't know a single person who's seen it that hasn't raved about it and tried to get others to watch it. But I still don't know very many people that have seen it.
Yeah.
Like to the point where usually I'm saying that's a movie, not a character from Lost, right? Like, so I would define that as a cult classic.
Yeah.
Like very small audience, but everyone I know that's seen it is rabid
and
about
the question is cult movie, so it doesn't have to be a classic by any means.
That was the one.
That's
I thought
a great
of first.
pick.
Yeah, it is a great pick because exactly as soon as you said that you liked Locke, Barrett and I both watched it that very night. I think.
Yeah.
And both enjoyed it
I've
very
seen it
much.
3 times since.
Yeah, exactly. It's that type of movie.
I like your idea of the small and rabid fan base, and my favorite has a very small fan base, but a very rabid fan base. It's a movie called SLC Punk.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't talk about this in 1998. I wish I had. It's a very strange movie. It's about a couple of like anarchists. Matthew Lillard is one of them. And I'm going to butcher his name, Michael Gorgon. And Jason Segel is in this too. And they're out in Utah, and they're anarchists and punks. And they dress the part and everything. And Matthew Lillard, breaks the fourth wall and talks about how punk inspires people, and it's an aesthetic, and it's a whole lifestyle and all that stuff. And oh man, it's so good. I got introduced to it by a couple of friends of mine. That my idea of a cult classic, not a cult, is somebody bringing over like a DVD or a videotape or that kind of thing and getting you into it. And that's exactly what happened to me. And now I've watched this movie 10 to 12 times, and man, it's great. And everybody I've showed it to thinks it's great too. I guess not everybody's into movies about anarchy and Mormonism in Utah in the Reagan days, but I really haven't sold it. But it's really good.
I've never seen this. I remember it coming out and everything, and it came out around the time like there was all these movies coming out with like initials like SFW and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, that's part of a whole gang of movies that I'm not going to watch.
Yeah, no, this is definitely worth seeing.
I'll have to take a look at that.
They're out in Salt Lake City, and a weird place to be a punk in the 80s.
I'm going to throw another out there. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Primer.
Okay, I haven't seen this one. I've
Is
heard
this
it's good.
I watched it
movie?
once. I need to watch it 4 more times to understand it. Almost no one you know in your life has seen this movie, but the reason I bring it up is that if you go on to Reddit R Movies, anytime there's a best time travel movie discussion, whether that's the topic or just breaks out in the comments, these Primer fans are fucking angry that you have not watched this movie and fallen in love with it as much as they have. And his most recent movie, I think this is the same guy that made Upstream Color. I think his name's Shane Carruth. And Upstream Color, I read a description about it and wanted to vomit. Like, it doesn't sound like a movie. It sounds like 2 hours of some weird, trippy art experience. But his fans are just rabid about it.
Well, I will say this, Primer fans, if you did get a whole bunch of people who watched it and loved it, then you're no longer a part of the cult anymore.
Right.
So be proud of that, the fact that you've watched it and enjoyed it, and it doesn't seem like anybody else does, because it may not last very long.
It's like loving a band and then they make it big and you're like, oh, it's not as cool anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick one that sort of skirts what I just said about becoming franchise and everything, and that's Army of Darkness. Because it's the third.
Yeah, I was going to say it's already part of one.
It's the third of the Evil Dead series and everything, but I remember watching this in theaters just before I got a job at a movie theater and everything. And I had not even seen the other two Evil Deads. I don't think I even knew.
Oh, really?
I don't think even I knew what Evil Dead was when this came out. And I watched it, and I was just like, I love this. I love how this movie is doing its thing. I don't know what it is because I'm 16. I don't know what I love this thing that's going on here in front of me. It's very funny and entertaining to me. But yeah. As much as there's probably a huge cult of people who love Evil Dead, but you can't just go out onto the street and find tons of Army of Darkness fans or whatever. It is a very, it's a smaller group of people. This isn't like Austin Powers or anything, but I would say it's probably on the bigger end of the cult.
I got it. I got your damn words.
I do. I'll throw one more out since we all did. My Dinner with Andre is not what you would consider like a really entertaining premise of two guys sitting down talking. But it's Wallace Shawn and Andre Gregory, who had a discount version play in Angels and Demons.
Yes. I thought it was him so much. I was like, oh, they got Andre Gregory for this. Shit.
But man, they're talking about life and love and definitions of societal norms and things like that. And it's riveting, man. If you just put it on, don't drink too much, don't do any drugs or anything like that. Just pay attention, and it's cool, man.
It's conversation that you rarely ever hear.
Yeah,
like it's a life lived that is completely different from what you hear from anybody else talking about. This guy is like talking about going out into the woods and like, and being with these people and what their philosophies are and how they live their life and all this sort of stuff. And he goes on forever about these things, but you are entranced by it,
man. The script is so good. Like they double back, they talk conversationally and they listen conversationally, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but it's really, really interesting to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. We got time for another question?
Yeah, let's do one more.
Okay.
All right, so what are the best non-dialogue moments in movies? Now, there's a lot to choose from. What immediately comes to mind for me is the first 15 minutes of There Will Be Blood.
Yes.
That movie drew me in immediately, and I didn't even realize that it was dialogue-free, with a couple of exceptions.
Yeah.
For the first 15 minutes.
And I would think that it qualifies because it's not two people sitting back and forth talking.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like background fodder. So
I mean, just everything that Paul Thomas Anderson sets into motion, the performance from Daniel Day-Lewis, it was immediately locked into that movie.
I immediately thought of No Country for Old Men,
which actually came filmed in the same universe.
What?
There was a time I was reading about this. There was a set piece for There Will Be Blood where the derrick goes up, and there's a big like smoke thing and everything. And they were filming in the desert close by to where No Country for Old Men was. And the plume of smoke from There Will Be Blood showed up in the No Country for Old Men reel, and they had to close down for the day.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty
amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah. I had no idea. Those two movies are so great, and they were shooting that close to each other.
Yeah.
Jesus. Well, there's a lot of great non-dialogue. That's basically the reason I love this movie is that you're watching this guy make all these choices and decisions and take these actions, and he doesn't have anybody around him he needs to talk to. In most cases, he's doing them silently. But the one that stood out to me the most was the hotel assault / chase / gun battle where Sugar like blows off his hotel thing and it hits him in the chest.
Fantastic.
And then they're not talking. Nobody's talking. They're just running for their lives and trying to kill the other dude. And I'm just riveted. And a lesser movie is going to fill that with all kinds of unnecessary dialogue.
That's interesting to me because I wouldn't have even thought of that. It just seems like it does have. There's so much going on that you don't even realize that there's no dialogue in it.
Right. You don't need any of it at all.
Because all you see is him in his room. He sees the shadow of Sugar going across there. Then the light goes out, and then you just hear the and so that's an amazing. I'm glad you guys came up with those two. Like those two movies have so many similarities. Came out the same year, shot in the same place, filmed by great directors. I'm gonna go with the Mission Impossible. I can go with a lot of Mission Impossible.
Yeah, which one?
Really, like you could go with. I'm gonna go with all of them here. You could go with the CIA hack, which is the best. I think it's probably the best of all those.
Yeah.
No, non-dialogue.
I left it off my list because I thought you were going to say it.
Yeah, I mean, that one is as riveting as action scenes get, and it's amazing. Now, Jeremy in his emails and everything brought up the one in Ghost Protocol, which is amazing, where they have the screen that's showing the hallway, and it's like broadcasting that image and everything. Yeah. And then there's also one in Rogue Nation where they're going through the opera house and everything. The opera house, especially by the time Cruise decides he's going to shoot that guy in the shoulder and everything, and again, it's one of those things. You see what he sees. He does something that makes a ton of sense. And you are exhilarated because of it. You didn't once sit there and go, if I shoot this guy in the shoulder, or some bullshit, that was going on or whatever. But Mission Impossible's filled with those.
Yeah.
So all good stuff.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to bring up Mission Impossible 2, where it's the silent dove.
Oh yeah,
they're flying.
Mission
around.
Impossible 2, known for its silence.
It's very subdued film.
Very subdued. Okay, last one. The main characters of the last 3 movies you've watched are now your apocalypse team. Who has the best team?
See, this question is hilarious just because of the way it forces you to answer with what you've seen recently. So it's going to result in some kookiness. For a while, I thought I had this guy nailed because the last 3 movies I've seen were The Martian, Bourne Ultimatum, and then this weird Paul Giamatti film in 2011 that I'd never even heard of until it came on Showtime the other day called Win Win.
Good stuff. Yeah. Another great performance.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really entertained by that film.
Do you have Double Damon?
Yeah, so I got 2 versions of Damon in my apocalypse squad.
Ass to ass.
One that is an ass-beating spy, right? And one that will science the shit out of the situation to get me through it. And then I have this pudgy, embezzling, slacker lawyer wrestling coach who pisses off everyone in his life by the end of this movie. He turns it around somewhat. And he's going to slow me down. He's going to be a problem for me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if my team is going to be able to compete with your guys' teams.
Wow.
I don't know.
I've got a pretty wild team. So I watched The Shallows.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Blake Lively. Now, I feel that's an underrated pick, actually, because she is able to survive on this rock for a while. She's a medical student that ends up, becoming a doctor. She goes toe-to-toe with a shark.
Yep.
A big, huge shark. So I feel all right about Blake Lively and, her weird porny shots that are all over her body throughout that movie.
Yeah.
So I've got The Shallows. Also watched Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which does not put me in a good position because Jim Carrey's Joel character is just the saddest fucking sack.
Yes, he is.
He's no good to anybody, apocalypse or otherwise. He's not going to help you.
I mean, if it's the lead character, maybe I could take like Mark Ruffalo's hipster character and he could do something for me because he's super intelligent.
Yeah.
And the last movie that I watched was It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown.
Oh, nice.
So I'm pretty much fucked.
Well, we'll decide whether you're fucked or not. I guess you're kind of fucked.
Yeah,
you're fucked. You lose.
Yeah, you're fucked. Although mine, really aren't much better. Okay, so for this podcast, I watched The Candidate.
Oh, yeah,
that was the last movie I watched. So you have Redford as like this lawyer turned into a hopeful political candidate and everything, senator of California. Maybe Peter Boyle in there who's doing great campaign stuff in there. And, not really like
not useful in an apocalypse.
Not a lot of badasses of apocalypse in here. And once the apocalypse happens, who gives a shit about politics, right? And then I also, because Jeremy recommended it was Equilibrium. I saw that.
Yeah.
Now, in Equilibrium, there's some badasses. Christian Bale has a moment at the beginning of this movie that's it's like the best part of the movie.
Yeah,
it's
really is.
He's in the dark, he's shooting, and it's like all these, it looks like freeze frames almost, but it's just like different angles of him just blowing away all these people in the dark and everything.
Nice.
It's really cool. And you find out later, like how they do that. Like it's some sort of kung fu gun maneuvering type of thing that they're all doing, which they probably all get destroyed by Bruce Lee within 5 seconds. in the movie, they seem amazing, right? But yeah, Equilibrium, it'd be Bale there. But then the other one I saw because of our Modern Horrors SinCast a couple weeks ago is Landmine Goes Click. There's nobody who's a badass in this, and they're basically living in an apocalyptic world at this
Maybe
point.
you could use the landmine.
No.
Oh.
Couldn't, unfortunately. And if you watch the movie, you'll understand why I can't use the landmine.
All right.
But but yeah, like that movie's got characters who are reprehensible and who somewhat nice on the surface, not really survivors in any way.
Oh.
So, yeah, really, I only have Bale, and that's it.
Well, this question just proves that we don't watch movies based on apocalyptic thoughts.
No, but it's a very interesting question.
It's a super interesting
I wish
question.
I had watched, World War Z and, fucking...
Yeah.
Just watching Hulk over and over
X-Men
again.
Apocalypse.
Actually, yeah, we've all watched that.
Yeah. All right. Well, and keep on going to SoundCloud and telling us how we're doing. We're enjoying reading those comments.
Had a ton of comments on the last 2 episodes.
And that's fantastic.
Yeah.
We want as many comments as possible to tell us how we're doing and everything. So, if we're doing shitty, you don't let us, be shitty. We got to be better. We got to be good.
Don't let us be shitty.
Don't let us be shitty. You gotta say some shit about that. Look, you guys are being kind of shitty this week. I need you to stop being shitty.
Okay.
There it is. Jeremy fucking it up again. No, I'm just kidding. And we'll be and tell us what we're doing right too, as well. I mean,
yeah, sure.
I mean, we don't want to hear just negative things, but we want to hear some positive things too. Mostly positive things. Anyway, that's the SinCast for this week. Chris Atkinson, Jeremy Scott, and Barrett Sher. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit CinemaSins.com.
Saying that every other religious movie that's come out after that has tried to emulate it, just hasn't been nearly as successful.
Yeah, they got to stop casting Kirk Cameron in those things.
Yeah.
They need a racist director.
Yeah. They do. They do.
That's the one thing that's been missing.
Out of all this. What was this? A mercy fuck?
Well, it's weird because in that same article, it's either him or Bad Robot is saying that they want to put a new Cloverfield universe movie out every year.
Yeah, fucking stupid. It's fucking stupid that they're going to give us a Star Wars movie every year.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they're going to run it into the ground.
Exactly.
I love how they say, well, you won't live long enough to see the last Star Wars movie, which probably not. Probably won't, but I don't think it means what you think it means, where you're coming out with one every year and we're going to be excited about it 35 years from now.
Yeah. I think it's Bobby that does the music video sins, right? Like when I do those, way more than when I do the main channel videos, I talk to him. Because it seems like, and this is not an issue, I'm telling you this story for jokes, but like every music video sin script has at least one sin where there's a word missing or an extra word in there, like 2 sins got combined and in the copy paste something lingered that shouldn't have or something. And so every week I'll get to a sin like that. I'll be like, these goddamn scripts, and I'll just go off for like 30 seconds or I'll open one up and say, I've never heard of this band. I guess I'm too old. Or somebody, Bobby probably, is spending a good portion of their week listening to me bitch and complain.
Believe me, the number of times I've gone into Frankenstein audio into a thing, I've heard you bitching about stuff. like a lot of times you'll be like, I didn't write this line, so you guys just know that I didn't write it. I'm like, fuck you didn't write it.
I don't say it for that reason. I say it because I don't know what it means, or I don't know how to emphasize the words in the sin.
Yeah, because I'm sitting there going, what does it fucking matter? Say it, you fucking donkey!
A lot of times I'll say, like, I didn't write any of these sins, or I didn't write on this one, so apologies in advance for all the fuck-ups I'm going to do as I read through this. But I'm never meaning that. I don't mean that at all.
Everything.
I did
now.
like the one you gave me where you were like, Jeremy, you can pronounce this however you want because it's not a real word.
I wrote that in.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Because it was noodle slicing.
Because it was, yeah. It was on the, the Purge Anarchy or election year script because Barrett suggested an IKEA name. And I went ahead and put it in the script, and I said, by the way, not a real word. You can say this however you want.
I said it noodle slicing.
Perfect.
I would get all these forums that were just like, all you do is you press Alt Shift blah blah blah, and I'm like, no, that's not fucking working.
There's always a macro for these things.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
A combination of 6 keys pressed down at once.
Right. Just press your head on the keyboard.
Gently rest your finger.
It'll know. It'll know.
You've seen those commercials where it's like, let me hear you say truck, yeah.
Oh God.
Maybe.
I mean, are they trying to get across that they want to say fuck yeah, but they're going to say truck yeah?
Oh yeah, because that's something that rednecks like to hear, probably.
You think they actually have it
very
like
clever to some rednecks?
They actually have.
We're gonna say fuck, but it says truck.
Speaking of sideways, there's that great moment when they're walking off the golf course and cussing like sailors, and there's that other golfer who's like, "Hey, got kids here or whatever."
I like that thing where he goes, "What did they hit into the?"
Yeah,
they were playing slow, and he hit into it. It's like,
he turns into a monster for a second.
The Pearl Jam Unplugged was overrated.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Really? So that's looked upon by a lot of people like it's the shit. Like that's the top MTV Unplugged of all time.
I thought Nirvana was.
No, well, I mean around some circles I guess it is, but the Pearl Jam one, and this happened a lot with people. It sounds like a regular show because you've got the full drums and everything, and it's all loud, and everybody's just shouting basically, and like every once in a while when like the drum part goes down, you can hear like an acoustic guitar in the background. That's the only thing that says this is an unplugged performance.
Yeah, the Nirvana one I think is special because it's so acoustic. It's so the opposite of their normal sound.
They'd never done anything like that before.
Yeah. One of my favorite subreddits is TIFU, Today I Fucked Up. And it's people telling stories about fuck-ups. And one I read yesterday was a guy, the title of it was, Today I Fucked Up by singing Rape Me along with my MP3 when I thought I was alone in the gym or something like that.
Wow.
Oh, shit.
Fuck. Joy.